Deep within a grim swamp forest, a strange light pierces the oppressive gloom, where a single log glows with an unnatural, almost magical energy, and it turns out the source isn't wood at all, but some kind of lump, a sentient lump that's just woken up with a serious case of amnesia. His last memory is scrolling through manga on his phone before passing out, which can only mean one thing: the classic truck-kun special to another world. But he's read enough of these to know the drill. Panic later, survive now. So he tries calling out to see if there's anyone else in this murky dump, only to be met with a forest full of glowing red eyes staring right back at him. Yeah, maybe shouting wasn't the best idea in a swamp teeming with giant bugs. And yet, for some bizarre reason, this damp, disgusting place feels comfortable, which is a deeply concerning thought for someone who used to be human. Just then, the universe provides an answer in the form of a status window, confirming he's a level 1 slime mold with a weak creature achievement. Ouch, and his HP is already ticking down, threatening a second much slimier death. This system alert says to eat or hibernate, and hibernation sounds a lot like giving up, so he focuses on his one useful trait, Decomposer, which means this rotten log he's sitting on is basically a 5-star meal. His body instinctively spreads out to consume it, tasting like a soggy biscuit. A soggy biscuit he's apparently going to be eating for a very long time. After finishing his log biscuit, he lets out a satisfying burp and hits level 2, which nets him a shiny new skill point for either Decompose or something called Pulsation. He has no clue what Pulsation does, but in true gamer fashion, he just yeets the point into it, and his entire body starts to throb with a weird glowing energy. Turns out it's basically a movement skill, letting him shift his goo around to get places. And with wood no longer giving XP, our boy decides it's time to leave the nest and explore. He's having way too much fun just morphing his body into whatever shape he wants. When he spots it in the distance, a weirdly colorful mushroom just sitting there. His human brain screams poison, but his new slime instincts are screaming 5-star Michelin dinner. So he starts oozing his way over, instinctively finding the most efficient path to his meal, which is apparently a real slime mold superpower, even outsmarting Tokyo's subway planners. Slowly but surely, he creeps through the undergrowth towards his prize, reaching the mushroom and immediately wrapping his tendrils all over it, covering the entire cap as he prepares to dig in for a real feast. But the moment he takes a bite, his mind gets blasted into a weird online dating scenario, where a pink-haired girl asks if he's the legendary tough guy Bang Bang, and he, now a dapper gentleman with a slime for a head, confirms he is indeed the one, only for his date to turn around and reveal she's a multi-eyed, drooling horror show. A classic case of getting catfished by a literal toxic monster from the swamp, and a system alert confirms it. He's been poisoned, with his HP plummeting fast. His body literally explodes from the toxin, with his HP draining away at an alarming rate. So in a moment of pure survival instinct, he just rips off the infected part of himself, which actually works, clearing the poison but dropping his max HP down to 17. This mushroom also took a hit, but our boy decides a tactical retreat is the only smart play here. Vowing to return like a defeated general planning his grand comeback tour, he finds a nice rotting log to use as a makeshift infirmary, and after a quick 15-minute snack break, he's back to full health, even if dead wood no longer gives him any experience points. With his HP maxed out again, our slime is officially back in business, and immediately starts oozing his way back for another round with the toxic fungus. Turns out he's got a genius plan. Take a tiny bite, retreat, heal on wood, and repeat the cycle. A brilliant war of attrition he dramatically calls Project Move Mountain. He's convinced that with enough time, he can wear this thing down completely. And on his 8th attempt, the poison trip girl is back, practically mocking his persistence. But this time the tables have turned, as she suddenly finds herself in handcuffs, because our slime is now a cop, arresting her for being a public menace. Back in reality, his body swells up with a triumphant shudder, and a system alert confirms it. Decomposition successful, plus a shiny new poison resistance skill. So that's why each attempt got a little bit easier. He was building up an immunity. Though he's a little bummed that all that effort didn't even get him a level up. With his nemesis defeated, he realizes this whole swamp is just an all-you-can-eat mushroom buffet. So he starts with a safe one, immediately dinging level 3 and getting a skill point, then moves on to a toxic one, which levels up both him and his new poison resistance skill, and soon he's just mowing down the entire patch, raking in a ton of experience points, hitting level 5 before the system nerfs his grind with a 24-hour mushroom cooldown. With the XP well dry, he decides to pack up the rest of the fungi for later, fashioning himself a very stylish mushroom hat for emergency rations and self-defense. Convinced he's a tactical genius for using poison mushrooms as monster repellent. Feeling invincible, he oozes off into the swamp with his new, highly flammable-looking armor, just in time to see a swarm of giant hornets carrying chunks of flesh fly by. He immediately panics and hides, hoping his little poison hat actually works as advertised. But the hornets fly right past him, completely uninterested in a walking salad bar, when a giant frog suddenly snipes one of them right out of the air with its tongue. Our slime can only watch in horror as another massive predator enters the scene. And the hornets, now thoroughly provoked, immediately swarm the amphibious attacker, giving him a front-row seat to a full-blown monster turf war breaking out. This frog is quickly overwhelmed, surrounded by dozens of angry, buzzing insects, and one of them lines up a perfect shot on the frog's extended tongue, landing a nasty sting right where it's gotta hurt the most. It seems the frog is stronger individually, but the hornets have the numbers, and they are not happy. Our boy's gamer brain immediately kicks in, realizing monster corpses mean big XP. While the frog gets absolutely wrecked, taking stings from every possible direction, its tongue now a swollen, purple mess that has got to be agonizing. But in a final act of defiance, it lashes out and snags a whole bunch of hornets. Managing to get a snack, even as it's clearly on its last croaking legs, and our slime is just watching this brutal nature documentary unfold, completely stunned. This battered frog retreats to a branch, probably regretting its life choices, when a massive snake suddenly erupts from the water, ready for an easy meal. And just like that, the frog's very bad day comes to a very abrupt end. Except the predator isn't a snake, but some kind of terrifying bird-snake hybrid. Its giant, unblinking eye immediately locks onto our slime's hiding spot, who instantly gives up, offering his mushroom hat as a pathetic peace offering. And the creature just stares, its reflection showing a terrified little pile of goo. It seems thoroughly unimpressed, maybe even a little disgusted by the sight. So instead of eating him, it just punts him like a slimy soccer ball, sending him flying across the swamp and scattering his precious mushroom rations. He soars high above the canopy, getting an unplanned aerial tour of the forest, which is actually a pretty nice view if you ignore the whole being kicked part. He finally crash lands in a random clearing surrounded by his lost snacks, only to find giant centipedes staring down, confirming his place at the bottom of the food chain. He concludes the only reason he's alive is because he's too pathetic to even be a snack. And his status window confirms he's now level 5 with a pile of skill points, but that weak creature title is still there, just mocking his entire existence. He starts having a full-blown existential crisis about his future as a sentient puddle, deciding the best course of action is to just give up and hope it's all a bad dream. This next morning, however, brings a whole new set of problems as some kind of goo starts dripping down from the mushrooms above him, which turns out to be acid that starts melting him on contact. This pain is so intense it unlocks a new skill called Burst, a high-speed dash, which he immediately uses to slam face-first into a nearby log. And the culprit behind this unprovoked assault is a giant smug-looking snail, who's just casually spitting acid liquor all over the place, dissolving the very ground our boy is trying to recover on. This thing is clearly getting a kick out of torturing him, looking down on him with absolute slimy contempt. Our slime is furious, not just for the acid bath, but because the snail stole his mushrooms. And dripping saliva on his face is apparently a declaration of war. This snail's response is to just make a pathetic little chirping sound, but our boy is having none of its fake crying routine, though the snail seems committed to playing the victim in this whole mess. But then his rage gives way to pity, figuring they're both just low-level creatures trying to survive, so he decides to be the bigger slime and offers to share the mushrooms, a true act of charity. And as the snail starts eating, our boy's mind immediately jumps to classic Shounen manga tropes, fantasizing about them teaming up to increase their odds in this unforgiving world, picturing a future where they level up together, becoming legendary adventuring partners, and eventually taking down the Demon King with the unstoppable power of their bond. Snapping back to reality, he makes his official proposal, an alliance for mutual protection and snack. And the snail looks up with what appears to be a heartwarming, teary-eyed acceptance, which was just a wind-up for a vicious headbutt that smashes right into him. This attack costs him 12 HP, a painful reminder that nature doesn't care about feelings. And realizing he's been completely outplayed, he decides it's time for a tactical retreat. But the snail immediately stops eating, its gaze locking onto its escaping meal. And now he's being actively hunted by the very monster he tried to befriend. With no other options, he dumps his remaining skill points into pulsation for a desperate speed boost, pushing his slimy body to its absolute limit in a full-power dash for his life. But even with the upgrade, the snail is somehow keeping pace right behind him, and after a full 3 minutes of running, he hasn't managed to shake his pursuer at all. Realizing in horror that this thing's base speed is just as fast as his maxed-out skill, this snail suddenly stops and its body begins to swell, preparing to launch another attack, firing off another volley of its signature acid liquor right at our fleeing hero. This acid melts right through him, cleaving off a huge chunk and dealing 27 damage, and his first thought is a philosophical question about where his consciousness goes. He quickly realizes that's a problem for later as he's currently being dissolved. Meanwhile, the snail lets out a horrifying shriek, its mouth a gaping maw of teeth, then slams down hard, splattering what's left of him across the log and starts casually eating the piece of him it just tore off. Our boy can only watch in horror as the monster literally slurps him up, before it turns its glowing red eyes back on him, ready for the main course. But then he spots it, one of his poison mushrooms lying nearby, a perfect last-ditch weapon. As the snail looms over him with its mouth wide open for the kill, he activates Burst and shoves the toxic fungus straight down its throat. This monster starts making its pathetic chirping sound again, but this time it's for real, as its entire body starts convulsing from the mushroom's potent toxin. It collapses in a heap and a wave of system alerts confirms the kill, dinging him to level 6. He realizes the snail had no poison resistance, which is why it was melting everything first. With his first real monster defeated, he's feeling pretty good about himself, and immediately gets to work decomposing the corpse to see what new skills he can get. Turns out snail meat is just as slimy and gross as you'd expect, so he just tells himself it's fancy French cuisine and forces the dissolution to continue. Unfortunately, the process has a very sudden and very painful-looking side effect. This snail meat tastes so absolutely disgusting his entire body convulses in rejection, and the system immediately cancels the decomposition, awarding him 0 experience for his effort. He considers just tossing the corpse, but throwing away a victory he nearly died for feels like a waste. Realizing that in this world, he doesn't have the luxury of being a picky eater. So with a face of pure regret, he forces himself to start dissolving the snail all over again. This process is apparently a long and visually unpleasant one for the entire forest, as he just sits there slowly, painfully trying to digest his disgusting prize. But it finally works, netting him a level up to 7 and a full heal, though being restored to optimal state just leaves him feeling like a miserable, melted puddle. His skill window pops up showing he's got more points to spend and a higher level decomposition. Looking over his kit, he realizes his entire build is just eating, running, and not dying to poison, which means he has absolutely 0 skills that can actually be used for attacking. He quickly gives up complaining, accepting that this is just his pathetic life as a slime mold. Besides, with all the buff animal dudes running around, maybe not being a threat is for the best. So with his new points, he does the only logical thing, upgrades his primary runaway skill. And with Pulsation now at level 4, he's eager to test out his brand new speed. He gives it his all, managing to travel a whole 20 centimeters in 1 second. Confirming his new top speed is a truly blistering pace for a level 7 creature. This translates to less than a kilometer per hour, sending him right back into an existential crisis. A full week later, he's still on that same log, probably contemplating all of his life choices. After a week of moping, he decides hiding out is getting old and it's time to find a new base. But first, he's got to go grocery shopping before hitting the road. So he uses his new search skill, spreading his body out into a network of slimy feelers, which lets him cover a huge area at once, basically turning himself into a living radar grid. His tendrils quickly locate some white fungus, which he immediately absorbs for later. And he follows that up by snagging a whole batch of straw mushrooms, stocking up the pantry. Turns out he can now decompose stuff on the go, making exploration way more efficient, even dissolving some poison shrooms to bump his poison resistance up to level 4. He then tries to decompose the old snail corpse, but just bounces right off the shell, which somehow deals 9 damage, a truly pathetic way to get hurt. And that's because it's not a corpse, but a brand new snail that's been watching him, who immediately opens fire with a familiar glob of acid liquor. He takes a bit of damage but easily dodges, feeling pretty good about his speed upgrade. Though he quickly realizes this snail is also way faster than the last one. He gets cocky anyway, taunting that the snail will never be able to hit him again. And a moment later, he gets absolutely blasted for a massive 33 damage. This snail just sits there, completely unfazed, as our boy's body melts away. Then it lunges forward and bites down hard on one of his tendrils, which is exactly what he wanted, revealing he let it hit him on purpose. Because now that it's latched on, he can finally counterattack by engulfing its head. This snail is finally dissolved, netting him a sweet level up to 10. He admits that eating monsters is disgusting, but the EXP gains are just too good to pass up. And as he decides to move on, he immediately senses something else rustling in the grass, confidently calling it out, assuming it's just another one of those pathetic snails. Unfortunately for him, it's a giant, horrifying blade-legged centipede, which towers over him, looking like it's ready for an easy meal. Its legs are literally scythes and it's flexing them menacingly, sending our boy into a complete and total meltdown. This monster lunges forward, ready to slice him into a million slimy pieces, so he panics and starts chucking his only weapon, the poison mushrooms. This brilliant plan fails immediately as the centipede just dices them mid-air, and he realizes with dawning horror that his one trick is completely useless. This centipede then wraps around him, starting a move called Myriapod Blade Strangle, sinking its dozens of sharp legs deep into his gooey body. But it turns out being a puddle is the perfect counter, as the blades just get stuck, and with the monster completely immobilized, he calls it a free EXP delivery. After that easy win, he's actively hunting, spotting a big beetle from behind a rock, though he passes on a bee, deciding it's too pretty and out of his reach anyway. Then a cockroach appears, and that's a hard pass. Some things are just too gross to absorb. So for now, he's just chilling in the sun, enjoying a berry and living his best slime life. He's now level 13 with the prestigious title of Weak Creature to his name. After all that trauma, he's feeling pretty good, realizing that eating meat is the key to leveling fast, and his ambitions are growing, already picturing himself climbing the food chain past frogs. This power trip immediately escalates to him, fantasizing about world domination from atop a pile of corpses. Full of confidence, he continues his journey and stumbles upon a random pool of water, which he figures must be full of delicious underwater resources just waiting for him. So he decides to test it out, dipping a single slimy appendage into the water, and his body immediately bloats up, feeling like it's about to pop from the pressure. Turns out basic biology is his new worst enemy, as osmosis is trying to make him explode. With his underwater exploration dreams officially canceled, he backs away from the deadly puddle. But then something massive starts crawling out of that exact same pool of water, and our boy can only stare in horror as he realizes it's a giant crab. This crab just sits there blowing bubbles, looking completely unbothered by his presence, which immediately flips a switch in his brain from terror to delicious crab dinner. He tries to lure it onto the shore with a friendly invitation, a truly masterful plan, and the crab actually starts climbing up a rock but stays safely in the water. It just keeps blowing more bubbles, completely uninterested in his obvious trap, leaving him pretty annoyed that the monster isn't cooperating with being eaten. He starts scheming about poisoning the water since the direct approach clearly failed, but the crab suddenly unleashes its own attack, a high-pressure bubble barrage. Those bubbles are actually a high-pressure water jet that blasts right through his body, and the attack has some serious range, piercing the ground a good distance away. He takes a solid 25 damage, completely blindsided by the crab's water gun. Before he can recover, another jet slices through him for 10 more HP, forcing him to scramble for cover behind a tree as the barrage continues. He quickly realizes this crab is on a whole different level from the other bugs. So his new plan is to just hide and see who has more patience. A brilliant strategy. This crab seems to give up and head back to the water, making him think he's won. But it was a total fake out as the monster suddenly comes ashore, ready to fight. It rears up on its legs, looking way more menacing now that it's on his turf. Then it uses a dash skill, scuttling towards him with terrifying speed. Our boy finally gets it. The crab is actually hunting him for dinner. In a complete panic, he starts oozing his way up the nearest tree to escape. He can't believe he went from confident hunter to terrified prey in less than a minute, but his escape is cut short when he runs face first into a giant spider. He's so focused on the crab below that he just tells the spider to get lost. He even gets arrogant, warning the spider he's eaten plenty of bugs just like it. This spider, however, does not appreciate being threatened by a sentient puddle. It immediately unleashes an arachnid slash, its legs slicing deep into his body, which deals a whopping 30 damage, making him question his supposed blade immunity. Turns out this is a level 16 spider monster with Way of the Sword, which explains the damage. At that exact moment, the crab's water jet blasts the tree right under him, leaving him with 17 HP, officially trapped between two very angry monsters. This spider closes in, and our boy can only lament his absolutely catastrophic luck. With the crab's bubble barrage pinning him down, he has nowhere left to run, so he dodges, letting the high-pressure water jet smack the spider right in the face. This, predictably, makes the spider extremely angry, and its attention immediately shifts from our boy to the crustacean on the ground. Deciding the crab is the real problem, the spider leaps down to start a turf war. It kicks things off with an arachnid silk shot, trying to web up its new opponent, and follows up with a swift arachnid slash, aiming to crack the crab's shell. But the attack just glances off the crustacean carapace, doing absolutely nothing. This spider switches tactics, using its silk to try and restrain the crab's giant claw, managing to get the pincer all tangled up in sticky webbing. From a safe distance, our boy congratulates himself on successfully shifting the aggro. Unfortunately for the spider, the crab is just getting started, bubbling with pure rage. It flexes its massive claw, gathering power for a devastating counterattack, and with one clean snap, it sends the spider flying through the air. This spider can only screech in disbelief as it's completely and utterly dominated, before the crab finishes it off, crushing it against its own shell like a bug. This spider gets absolutely launched into the air, completely outmatched by raw crustacean power, leaving the crab just sitting there, claw still webbed but otherwise looking bored. But the spider isn't done, unleashing arachnid silk control to fully immobilize its foe, and in seconds, the crab is completely mummified in a thick layer of webbing. From his hiding spot, our boy is genuinely impressed that the spider managed to turn things around, until the crab starts ominously foaming at the mouth from inside its silk prison. It's charging up another bubble attack, and being wrapped up isn't slowing it down one bit, suddenly unleashing a massive water jet that blasts right through the webbing, which then curves mid-air, locking onto the spider like a heat-seeking missile. This spider gets completely obliterated by the high-pressure stream, torn to absolute shreds, as the crab's attack continues to spray wildly across the entire clearing. Our boy realizes the crab just entered survival mode, making it 10 times more dangerous. After that final desperate attack, the crab finally collapses, completely out of juice. This battlefield is now littered with spider parts and one very exhausted, webbed-up crab. He cautiously peeks out from behind his tree, wondering if the chaos is finally over, and seeing his opportunity, he slithers out to claim his prize. He even gets cocky, taunting the immobilized crab for being all tuckered out after its tantrum. Now he just has to figure out how to finish it off without getting eaten in the process. His gaze falls on a nearby rock, and a wonderfully primitive idea starts to form. So he absorbs the stone into his body, preparing to deliver a good old-fashioned bludgeoning. His brilliant plan hits a snag. His inventory is full, and his low HP means less storage. To make room, he unceremoniously spits out his entire mushroom collection, and with his inventory cleared, the rock is successfully absorbed into his body. He immediately starts glowing, straining under the immense weight of his new weapon, complaining about how heavy it is as he drags himself toward the helpless crab. He even announces his arrival, telling the monster he's here to collect his prize, having oozed back up the tree to prepare for a gravity-assisted execution. But the crab isn't quite done, firing one last desperate water jet straight up, which just splashes harmlessly against his new rock armor as he taunts it for trying. That's the last of its energy, leaving the crab looking up in pure, unadulterated terror. And with that, he lets the rock go, crushing the crab in a single decisive blow, landing on the wreckage to declare himself the winner and netting a level up to 14. He's immediately on a power trip, gloating about how great he is for winning the fight. With the hard part over, he settles in to finally enjoy his hard-earned meal, even using the crab's shell as a makeshift bowl, adding a touch of class to the carnage. He digs in with a piece of wood, ready for his first taste of actual decent food. This taste is so good he eats words, just happy munching sounds. It's a culinary revelation, a far cry from the moldy wood and slimy snails he's been eating. He's literally crying with joy, realizing good food is a genuine reason to survive this world. So he vows to savor every last bite, not letting any of this precious gift go to waste. After gorging himself on crab, he's now a very full, very happy level 14 slime mold. Feeling fully motivated, he decides it's time to work on a brand new project. So he finds a quiet spot in a field to begin his very important, very secret training, which involves him straining with every fiber of his being to force something out, and it looks less like a cool new skill and more like a severe case of constipation. He's literally screaming from the effort, his entire body puffing up under the pressure. Our boy is trying to replicate the crab's water jet, attempting to summon it from his own body. Based on the flawless logic that if a crab can do it, a slime mold should be able to as well. He focuses all his power, his eyeball practically bursting with the strain of his new idea. After all that effort, he manages to squeeze out a tiny, pathetic little glob of goo. To add insult to injury, it even came out of the completely wrong end. He's thoroughly unimpressed with his own performance, since the attack has zero power or control. Calling the whole attempt outrageous, he gets ready to try a different approach. This time, he activates his burst skill, unleashing a proper, high-speed projectile which punches a hole clean through the crab shell, evolving burst into cytoplasm spray. This new skill lets him weaponize his own body, firing it out as a powerful attack. He's absolutely thrilled, realizing for the first time that his skills can actually evolve. But then he notices something even better. The old 5-minute time limit is completely gone. He immediately tests this theory, firing off another shot without any delay, which means his new favorite move has absolutely no cooldown, letting him spam it endlessly. All that target practice immediately levels up cytoplasm spray to level 2. But there's a catch. Every shot drains his HP, forcing his body into a self-eating state. He realizes as a slime mold, his only path is to decompose and absorb everything around him. This leads to a truly galaxy brain moment. What if he just eats himself? Then he finds the piece of his body the spider sliced off earlier, just lying there. It's definitely the chunk he lost, and he wonders if he can get it back. So he tries out a new skill, Reclamation, to reabsorb the lost piece. Not only does it restore his HP, but it also gives him all the EXP the piece gathered, which means his detached body parts can act as little autonomous EXP farms. He's absolutely delighted, realizing he's just found a massive exploit in the system. His new master plan is to split himself into an army and level up exponentially faster. Immediately, he tests this theory with a division skill, plopping off a mini-me. Turns out any piece of him with less than 30 HP starts to self-destruct, which is a problem. But with nearly 200 max HP, he figures he can make a ton of clones if there's enough food. So he strains with all his might, preparing to create another one, and successfully splits off another chunk of himself, costing a solid 30 HP. It actually works, leaving him with a little clone ready to do his bidding. He's so proud of himself, he immediately compares it to the Shadow Clone Jutsu. In his mind, he's already leading a massive army of slime mold ninjas. Getting right to work, he orders his first clone to go start munching on a nearby log. He even assigns his second clone to guard the mushroom pile, because priorities. A quick status check confirms he's still officially a weak creature, despite his growing power. With his army assembled, he decides to eat the leftover spider meat to top off his HP. He's getting pretty comfortable in this body, even starting to think he's terrifyingly strong. After all, normal piercing attacks just bounce right off his gelatinous hide, and even a sword slash passes through him without leaving a single scratch. A more advanced slash might actually cut him in two, but he just oozes back together, making him basically immune to physical damage. He's pretty sure the only thing that can actually hurt him at this point is magic, which he imagines as a terrifying barrage of spells he's thankfully yet to encounter. With that settled, he sends his clones out into a nearby swamp to start hunting. His clones immediately start absorbing rocks, following the boss's brilliant strategy. Their targets are a group of small, unsuspecting crabs just chilling in the water. His clones act as bait, luring the angry little crustaceans out of the swamp, leading them on a merry chase right into the middle of a clearing. Meanwhile, the real him is perched in a tree, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. These crabs are so focused on the bait they have no idea what's coming from above. With a mighty war cry, he prepares to unleash his signature move on the crowd below. His cytoplasm spray rains down from above, blasting the helpless targets. This ambush nets him 6 kills, a ton of EXP, and a level up to 15. After a quick meal, he's back to peak condition and ready for another round of training, squaring off against his new sparring partner, a completely stationary rock. In his head, he's a slick gunslinger, christening his new move Plasmodial Barrage, and he unloads a full-on volley of slime bullets, absolutely peppering his rocky target. This poor rock gets completely drenched, and his cytoplasm spray skill levels up again. After 2 days of this, his HP is tanking, but he's proud of his improved power and accuracy, though he's hit a wall, maxing out at 30 shots before needing to recharge. Then it hits him. He can add a little spice to his attacks by adding ingredients. His first idea is to wrap poisonous mushrooms in his goop to create toxic projectiles, and by that same flawless logic, wrapping a rock should add some serious kinetic punch. He immediately tests it out, and the stone-laced shot smacks the target with extra force. Our boy is absolutely convinced he's a tactical genius for inventing throwing rocks. His self-congratulation is cut short by a strange sound and a glowing light from a nearby tree, so he cautiously slithers over to investigate the source of the mysterious glow. He oozes up to the hollow for a closer look, surrounded by little glowing motes, only to come face to face with a massive, glowing spirit owl just staring him down. This is exactly what he was afraid of, a monster that can actually use magic. His only thought is to retreat, and he immediately starts backing away as fast as he can. But the owl just watches him go, not even bothering to give chase as he makes his escape, because it's using a skill called symbiotic scrying to track him from a distance. Meanwhile, a pink-haired adventurer spots him from afar with some kind of magic eye, but she casually dismisses him as a strange little monster, not worth her party's time. Their whole group is on edge since the forest is dead quiet and magic comms are down. Our boy, on the other hand, is having a full-blown panic attack fleeing from the magic owl. His only hope is to cross the nearby river, but he's got no way to swim, so he comes up with a brilliant physics-based plan to just launch himself over it. He uses his plasmodial barrage as a makeshift jetpack, propelling himself across the water, though the maneuver cost him a whopping 80 HP, leaving him as a puddle on the other side. With no time to recover, he continues his desperate escape deeper into the forest. Finally collapsing behind a tree, he prays he's actually put enough distance between them. He admits to himself that against a truly high-ranked monster, he'd be instantly vaporized. Right on cue, a terrifyingly powerful aura completely engulfs the clearing, and he realizes this new presence is far more dangerous than the owl he was fleeing. He looks up in terror, realizing it's not the owl that found him, but something else entirely. A massive, glowing, and armored appendage crashes down right in front of him. Our boy is just a tiny little blob staring up at this colossal thing. It takes him a second to process that he's looking at a gigantic severed finger. His mind immediately jumps to the classic golden finger trope, a legendary cheat item. He's absolutely convinced that absorbing it will grant him unimaginable power in an evolution. And there it is, just stuck in a log, practically begging to be eaten by a hungry slime mold. He immediately slathers himself over the prize, activating his dissolution skill to absorb it. His body starts bubbling and churning, trying to break down the armored surface, but he's making absolutely zero progress against the colossal appendage. And the system confirms this is a terrible idea, as decomposition fails due to the massive level gap. To make matters worse, he starts taking backlash damage for his hubris, his own cells rebelling. Thinking fast, he performs a tactical self-amputation, severing the part of him that's taking damage. He makes a clean getaway, leaving a sizzling chunk of himself behind on the invincible finger. Now safe, he curses his low-level skills while slowly regenerating his lost health. He decides the only option is to grind his skills and come back for the loot later. But his train of thought is interrupted by the ground suddenly starting to shake violently. This giant finger ignites like a rocket, blasting off from the log with incredible force, and smashes into the ground, carving out a massive crater before disappearing into the earth. In a blind panic, he fires his plasmodial barrage to fling himself onto a nearby tree. He clings to the bark, realizing he's completely trapped by whatever just happened. After a moment, the shaking stops, leaving nothing but a giant dark hole in the clearing. From his hiding spot, he peeks down at the aftermath, completely and utterly terrified. Our boy is officially having a breakdown, crying about how scary the outside world is. He swears off adventuring for good, deciding to just hide and decompose things safely, completely unaware that the finger is still glowing deep inside its new tunnel, and that the impact seems to have shattered some kind of invisible barrier in the forest. That impact shatters some kind of magical barrier across the forest, unleashing a wave of energy. This new development puts our boy, the magic owl, and that giant finger all on a collision course. Completely unaware, he just decides to lay low and build a temporary base for the night. He gets right to work using his dissolution skill to carve a cozy little home out of a tree. His master plan is a tiny entrance leading to a much bigger room, keeping out larger threats. In his head, he's a hardened construction foreman, ready to break ground on his new project. He puts in the effort, dissolving and shaping his new hideout with surprising speed, and even finds a handy, if slightly poisonous, luminous mushroom for some ambient lighting. To top it all off, he makes a comfy moss bed, feeling incredibly pleased with himself. With a food stash and a nightlight, his cozy little bunker is officially mission complete. His grand design was a bit more complex than the final product, but hey, it'll do. He even finds a stick to chew on, settling in for some well-deserved rest and relaxation. Finally, a mold with a home, his sense of security is now at an all-time high. But his peace is immediately shattered by an incredibly loud buzzing from right outside. So he pops his head out, ready to tell his new neighbors to keep the noise down. Turns out the noise is a massive swarm of giant wasps, and he gets a terrible idea. These things look seriously mean, buzzing around like a squadron of angry fighter jets. He fires off a single test shot, which actually manages to take one of them down. Gaining a bit of EXP, he cheerfully greets the rest of the swarm from his doorway. This, of course, immediately draws the undivided attention of every single angry wasp. He immediately yanks his head back inside, realizing he's just poked the hornet's nest, and in response, the entire angry swarm makes a beeline straight for his front door. His genius solution is to just plug the entrance with a chunk of his own body. Problem solved. Turns out they just kamikaze into his goop, turning him into living flypaper for easy EXP. After the first wave dies down, he peeks out to spot a few survivors still buzzing around, which leads him right to the source of the problem, their massive hive high in a tree. Naturally, his next move is to climb the tree and get a front row seat to the action. He's located their headquarters, and you can just see the gears of another brilliant idea turning. A couple of sentries finally notice the uninvited guest chilling on their branch. So this time, the entire hive pours out to greet him with extreme prejudice. He's completely unfazed, smugly remembering their physical attacks are useless against him, as they completely engulf him in a massive buzzing ball of pure unadulterated rage. Except they've got a secret weapon, a heat-smothering attack that starts cooking him alive. For the first time, his HP starts dropping, and he realizes this isn't physical damage at all. In a panic, he unleashes a point-blank plasmodial barrage to blast his way out, but one of the bigger wasps just casually throws up a beeswax shield, tanking the hit. That same wasp then delivers a brutal smackdown, sending our boy flying off the branch. Barely clinging on, he realizes the wasps guarding the hive are on a whole different level. To make matters worse, what looks like their commander shows up, armed with a massive stinger. And of course, its stinger starts glowing with a magic circle, the one thing he can't defend against. This Commander Wasp doesn't even flinch, just summons a whole new wave of angry backup, and our boy immediately recognizes the hierarchy: workers, guards, and a freaking Hornet Mage. This mage just stares him down, buzzing with a whole lot of magical intent. And on its command, the fresh wave of Hornets dive bombs straight for him. Not one to back down, he preps another full-power plasmodial barrage, unloading a massive volley to try and thin the herd before they reach him. His aim is actually on point, and he manages to shred a few of the grunts out of the air. But the problem is each shot is draining his HP, and there are way too many of them. Luckily, he's got a cheat code. He just absorbs the tree he's on for a constant HP refill. Just as he gets cocky, one of the guards throws up a beeswax shield, blocking his shot cold. Another one pops up a shield, and he realizes he's only got one stone-laced shot left, which he fires immediately, only for it to get blocked too as the guards close in. Two of them land right on him, trying to tear him apart with their pincers, but he's not even worried, basically thanking them for the free home delivery. He just envelops them completely, activating his dissolution skill on the spot. And with a smug look, he graciously accepts their generous donation of EXP. This system confirms he's gained a bunch of bee-spears and a stinger, but his inventory is full. Wasting no time, he wraps the new stinger in goop, creating a deadly armor-piercing round. This new projectile absolutely demolishes a guard's shield, punching straight through it. For the first time, the Hornet Mage actually looks a little surprised by the little slime's ingenuity. Seeing his new weapon, the Hornet Mage seems to order a full retreat, with the guards pulling back, and our boy's ego inflates instantly, convinced his power has them terrified. Turns out the mage is just repositioning its troops, conducting them like a tiny fuzzy orchestra, and it begins concentrating a massive glowing orb of what looks like pure honey, which immediately distracts our hero, whose only thought is how much he wants to eat it. This mage promptly sets the honey ball on fire using some kind of beginner magic, unleashing a spark ember attack with a flick of its twig-like wand, a blazing sphere of sticky, flammable death rockets straight towards the slime, slamming into him for a massive 70 HP and shattering his composure completely. Without missing a beat, the mage prepares a follow-up volley of smaller fireballs, and our boy finally realizes fire magic is his hard counter, so it's time to run. He scrambles down the tree as the branch behind him erupts in a series of explosions, forcing him to fire another plasmodial barrage just to get away from the blast zone. He launches himself like a desperate, goopy cannonball through the air, but the guards are already waiting for him, shields raised in a defensive line, forming a twin beeswax barrier that completely blocks his escape route. This mage then buffs its fireballs, a move our boy declares to be totally unfair. Just before the enhanced projectiles slam into his back, pinning him against the wall. As if that wasn't enough, the commander uses a swarm summon skill, calling out a new squadron of glowing, self-destructing bees from the hive. These glowing kamikaze bees lock onto their target, ready to detonate on impact, and slam into the tree right where he was hiding, turning the bark into splinters, which is immediately followed by a series of massive fiery explosions. And a chunk of our boy gets blown clean off the branch from the sheer force of the blast. He lands hard on a lower branch, completely rattled and definitely not having a good time. Meanwhile, the Hornet Mage just casually conducts the chaos like it's a Tuesday afternoon, while our boy is shaking so hard he's about to fall off on his own. But the mage speeds things up by ordering its guards to just snap the branch in half. Now he's in freefall, completely surrounded by a vortex of angry, buzzing insects. This mage decides this is the perfect time for an encore, gathering another huge orb of honey, and from its magic circle, it prepares to unleash a devastating finishing move. With a flick of its little twig wand, it gets ready to serve up some more pain, setting the entire honey ball ablaze into a miniature sun of sticky death. This thing is launched straight down, aimed at our boy and, hilariously, its own troops. It descends like a meteor, about to turn the entire area into a smoldering crater, and the resulting explosion is absolutely devastating, wiping out everything in the blast zone. This mage and its second-in-command look down at the destruction, mission seemingly accomplished. All that's left is a smoking pit and some charred debris, no sign of the slime anywhere. This commander looks pretty pleased with itself, assuming the problem has been vaporized. With the threat seemingly eliminated, it orders the remaining troops to head back to base. But just as the Hornets are about to celebrate, one of them gets a nasty surprise, because our boy launches a sneak attack from behind the tree, taking out the stragglers. He's already got a few of them wrapped up, smugly explaining their main forces are too far away to help. Turns out he's been using dissolution to carve a secret tunnel straight into their hive the entire time. That chunk of him they blew up was just a decoy he made by splitting his body, a costly but effective distraction, and while they were busy with their light show, he slipped right into the passage leading to their home base. He bursts out of the wall inside the hive, catching the first guard completely off guard. Then uses a search skill, spreading his goop through the structure to map everything out. This gives him a full blueprint of their entire nest, every tunnel and chamber included. His first stop is the nursery, which is definitely not what he's looking for, and his second stop is the egg chamber, which is also a hard pass. He finally stumbles into the honey storage, and for a second his priorities get a little fuzzy. But he shakes it off, remembering he can always come back for snacks after the main event. With his target located, he smashes through one final wall to make his grand entrance. And there she is, the one he was looking for all along, the queen bee. She's just a massive, defenseless grub, happily munching away, completely oblivious to the intruder. At the same time, the Hornet Mage and its guards are finally heading back, sensing something is wrong. but inside a whole new squad of creepy-looking royal guards with glowing red eyes is already on the scene. Too late for them, though. Our boy has already taken the queen hostage, holding a rock to her head. This queen lets out a terrified shriek, realizing her reign might be coming to an abrupt end. This hornet mage and its elite guard finally show up, looking ready to murder him, and its guards immediately charge forward, shields at the ready to protect their precious queen. Our boy calmly asks if they're open to a little negotiation, holding all the cards. And by negotiation, he means instantly crushing the queen's head with a rock. Problem solved. This hornet mage can only stare in absolute shock as its entire world falls apart. While outside, the whole swarm just starts dropping out of the sky, their connection severed. Even the elite guards inside begin to disintegrate, proving the queen was their linchpin. He muses that low-level monsters only understand instinct right as he gets a double level up, with the system confirming his new power as night falls over the forest. A new notification warns him that the EXP from the bee corpses will expire soon. His new status screen shows he's hit level 21, ironically earning the weak creature achievement. He also unlocked a central command skill, which is totally useless without any minions to command. Turns out his main racial skill can only be leveled through practice, not skill points. At least his inventory is now packed with high-grade honey, each one a massive 400 HP potion. He sits alone, surveying the absolute graveyard he's created in the aftermath, and for a moment he actually feels a little conflicted about the massacre despite not having a heart. He reflects on his journey from prey to predator, having now conquered an entire hornet colony. Meanwhile, in a completely different story, a little crab kid is sad his dad is late for game night, and a flashback reveals Daddy Crab is just a typical salaryman, stuck working late for his family. This scene closes on a crab-themed clock, ticking away as the little guy waits. Back with the crab family, Mama Crab is getting worried, telling her son to go find his dad. This kid gets all dramatic about his grand rescue mission, while his sibling tells him to keep it down. They finally spot a figure stumbling in the distance, looking exactly like their drunk dad. This little guy is absolutely thrilled, convinced his dad is finally home safe. But he's heading the wrong way, so they realize they need to go guide him back. As the kid runs to greet him, our slime quietly emerges from the shadows, having found his next meal. This figure turns, revealing he's already eaten the dad and is now wearing his corpse like a grotesque puppet, which, as you'd expect, sends the poor kid into a full-blown, terrified screaming fit. And this whole imaginary horror show sends our boy into a spiral, realizing he's become the villain. Turns out, none of that actually happened. It was just him overthinking things after the Hornet massacre. He chalks up the guilt to his lingering human conscience, which he decides is a liability now. In this world, you're either the hunter or the prey, and he's officially done being on the menu. With his moral compass now thoroughly shattered, he decides to go reclaim the decoy body he split off. He launches himself through the forest, bouncing between trees to get back to the blast zone. But as he gets closer, he notices a strange, warm glow coming from a clearing up ahead. He quickly realizes it's a campfire, which is definitely not something local wildlife would make. Landing silently at the edge of the woods, he creeps forward to investigate the source. He peeks out from behind a tree, wondering if he's finally about to meet some humans. And there they are, a whole party of adventurers just chillin', one using a giant pig as a beanbag. He ducks into a bush, completely stunned that he's actually stumbled upon real people. He's watching a C-rank beast tamer named Nia Ross, who's using her giant warthog as a recliner. Her B-rank captain, Rake Carter, is busy apologizing for getting them hopelessly lost. But the other B-rank, a mage named Cole, isn't worried, saying their guildmaster is one of the strongest around. Turns out, said guildmaster has been missing for 2 whole years after taking a sketchy mission from the Pope. This master, Gon, founded their guild on principles of fairness, which made them incredibly successful. So successful, in fact, that they earned the suspicion of the church right before he vanished. And now his loyal followers are stuck searching for him in this creepy, magic-dampening forest. Rake feels responsible for the guild's decline, thanking the other two for even showing up to help. Nia says she owes everything to Gon, since no one else would have accepted a beast tamer like her. Cole, ever the pragmatist, points out her skills are in high demand now, so she'll be fine either way, which earns him a swift kick from Nia, who tells him to shut his mouth and go to sleep. All this time, our boy has been trying to eavesdrop, shaping himself into a giant floating ear. He's hiding in the bushes, trying to piece together all this talk about guilds and churches. To get a better signal, he extends a slimy tendril to act as a biological listening device. It slithers across the grass, inching closer to the unsuspecting adventurers, until Cole casually looks up from his book and announces there's a monster nearby. This jig is up as his little goop antenna is spotted slinking through the clearing. Without even getting up, the mage summons an ice spike that erupts from the ground, skewering the tendril. A system notification confirms the frost effect is super effective, dropping his speed by 90%. Back in the bush, our boy is now covered in frost, completely frozen in place. Cole is completely unbothered while Rake and Nia jump to their feet, ready for a fight. They stare at the frozen goop spike, totally baffled by what they're even looking at. Nia's warthog, Little Steelback, gets curious and starts sniffing the weird ice sculpture, and then immediately shatters it with its snout, accidentally freeing our boy's tendril. From the bushes, the slime watches his escape plan get a lot more complicated, because the warthog decides his tendril looks like a tasty noodle and starts slurping it up. Our boy has a full-on game-over panic attack, convinced this is how he dies. Luckily for him, Nia tells her pet to stop trying to eat the weird forest spaghetti. She even gives a little speech about not harming weak creatures, calling him no threat. This warthog spits him out, and he quickly retracts his goop back to safety. But then Nia just reaches into the bush and scoops up his entire body, feeling a strange connection and asking if he wants to form a monster contract with her. He's absolutely over the moon, thinking he's finally hit the Isekai jackpot with an angel. Rake immediately shuts that down, telling her not to waste mana on a worthless slime. She reluctantly puts him on the ground while he realizes they can't understand him at all. So sitting there in the grass, our boy gets a much smarter idea. He starts wiggles the boss body, extending 2 tendrils across the dirt, and begins shaping them into something that definitely isn't a random squiggle. Rake spots the strange movement and points it out to a very confused Nia. Turns out he's writing a message to prove he's an intelligent lifeform, not just some random blob. This adventurers are just staring at the message, with Nia thinking it's some kind of rare slime poop. And our boy has a full-blown meltdown, realizing his genius plan was foiled by a simple language barrier. He decides to bail before they get any weirder ideas, waving them a silent goodbye. With that awkward encounter over, he bounces off into the night to find his missing half. He lands back at the blast zone, really hoping that terrifying owl isn't still lurking around. This is the perfect time to test out his new nucleus command skill to locate the decoy. His body morphs into a living radar, sending out pings to find his lost part. This skill unleashes a massive sensory pulse, scanning the entire surrounding forest, and it immediately locks onto the signal from his other self. Turns out, the decoy has been busy absorbing all the dead hornets from the explosion. He's actually pretty impressed with his new built-in GPS, confirming the location instantly. With a target acquired, he zips off through the trees to go reclaim his property. This signal gets stronger as he approaches, letting him know he's on the right track. But when he finally lays eyes on it, he's completely taken aback, because his little decoy has grown into a massive blob after decomposing everything in sight. He activates Reclamation, absorbing the whole thing back into himself for a huge EXP boost. This giant mass of goo surges back into his main body in a single swift motion, and the system goes nuts, leveling up his poison resistance and bumping him to level 22. He feels a jolt of power as the absorption finishes, making him bigger than before. At that exact moment, his internal radar pings again, detecting a weak creature nearby. He immediately starts hunting for the weak creature his radar picked up, calling it his EXP pack, and over a small hill, he spots his target hiding amongst a patch of colorful mushrooms. Turns out it's a nightmare snail trying to eat a leftover piece of his decoy body, so our boy instantly smacks the thief, telling it to get lost before he gets serious. This poor snail just trembles in fear as the slime drapes himself over the mushrooms menacingly, and he gets incredibly dramatic, crying sparkly tears over his wrong baby that he's come to rescue. With the snail properly intimidated, he moves in to reclaim his little glob of goo, but a massive tongue suddenly whips out of nowhere and snatches the prize right from under him. This tongue retracts in a blur, yanking his baby away before he can even react. Revealing the thief is a big smug-looking frog who's already chowing down on the goo. This slime can only stare in disbelief as the frog just croaks back at him, completely unbothered. So now he's actually mad, vowing to make the frog pay in blood for eating his child. He unleashes a brand new skill, Plasmodial Barrage, firing a chunk of himself like a cannonball, and the frog's eyes go wide, realizing way too late that the little blob is fighting back. This projectile slams right into its face, sending the amphibian flying through the air, leaving our boy feeling pretty confident, thinking he's strong enough to take on that owl now. But his victory lap is cut short when he realizes something isn't quite right, because the frog just caught the attack in its mouth, smoke pouring from its jaws. Before he can process this, the frog makes a break for it, leaping towards the water, and it dives into the lake with a huge splash, making a clean getaway for now. He's not letting this food thief get away, confidently declaring its escape is a pipe dream. From the safety of the lake, the frog just croaks back, completely unimpressed by the threat. So our boy unleashes another volley of goop missiles, trying to blast it out of the water. But they just plop into the lake, doing absolutely nothing to the submerged amphibian. His attacks are completely useless against a target that can just hide underwater. He's officially stumped, realizing he's got no way to win this fight as long as it stays in the pond. Just then, the frog leaps out of the water again, seemingly making a fatal mistake, and our boy gets a brilliant idea. Remembering amphibians need air, and this is his big chance. This frog lands on the surface, gathering an immense amount of power in its webbed feet. Turns out it wasn't coming up for air, but unleashing its own special move, revealing a mouth full of fangs. Its tongue whips out and smacks him hard, sending him flying into the rocky shoreline. Not one to be outdone, he fires back with another Plasmodial Barrage from his new position. This one lands a direct hit right in the frog's eye, a truly satisfying critical strike. His attack tendril snaps back into place, the job seemingly done for now. Unfortunately, the impact also left him splattered against a nearby tree trunk. He realizes the frog was luring him into its home turf, a humbling lesson about getting too cocky. Across the water, the frog clutches its bleeding eye, clearly hurt but definitely not defeated. It lets out a furious croak, now officially pissed off and ready for round 2. As it dives back in, our boy sees he's run out of solid ground to stand on. So he just says screw it, deciding to attack first and ask questions later. This frog is so hungry it looks like there are 3 of them, all ready to feast. And our boy can only sweat bullets, realizing this fight is far from over. From its perch on the tree, the injured amphibian lets out another defiant croak, and its tongue whips out again, revealing a mouthful of surprisingly sharp teeth. He gets snatched up instantly, having a full-blown oh crap moment. This frog starts reeling him in like a slimy green fish on a line. So in a panic, he grabs onto the tree trunk for dear life, trying to anchor himself. It's a desperate tug of war, with the frog pulling him closer to its waiting jaws, and for a second it looks like he's about to become frog food, staring down the gullet of doom. But then he gets an idea, wrapping his body around the trunk to reverse the momentum. With a mighty heave, he yanks back, turning the frog's own attack right back at it. This amphibian goes flying, its tongue snapping back painfully as it soars through the air, crashing into the lake with a final defeated splash. He lets out a sigh of relief, realizing just how close he came to being digested. Beneath the surface, the frog's body sinks into the depths, leaving a trail of blood. This water settles, the only evidence of the fight being the red ripples on the surface. And he's just bummed he can't absorb the corpse for EXP, a real tragedy for his grinding plans. At that exact moment, a pair of glowing eyes appears in the murky water below, and a massive razor-sharp horn shoots out, aimed right at his gooey face. It slams into the tree with incredible force, shattering the wood where he was just a second ago. He zips out of the way just as the horn splinters the entire tree trunk. And it turns out the frog he killed just had a shiny new evolution called Sanctified Fall, leaving our boy completely dumbfounded by this sudden, unadvertised boss form. This thing lets out a roar, showing off a brand new set of fangs and a very angry, bleeding eye. It then whips out a blood attack which creepily forms a heart before lashing out at him, and the bloody tendrils slam into the wood, narrowly missing our slime's new position. Seeing this, he immediately decides that fighting is a terrible, terrible idea and uses his body like a slingshot to get the hell out of there. He bounces through the forest at top speed, executing a perfect tactical retreat. A wise mole doesn't fight a low-rank monster that suddenly has a third form, that's just common sense. Unfortunately for him, the sanctified frog is hot on his tail, looking absolutely furious. It closes the distance fast, lashing out with its tongue as the chase continues over the lake. And the monster seems to be powering up even more, its body contorting into something bigger. Its sanguine lash whips out and lands a solid hit, taking off a huge chunk of his HP. This system warns him the blood is toxic and his poison resistance isn't high enough to stop it. Before he can recover, the frog launches another tongue lash right at him, which wraps around his body, stopping his escape cold. He gets slammed straight down into the lake with a massive splash, and the physical damage is basically nothing, making him a little too confident for a second, until he realizes he's in the waters, and a system alert screams at him to get out immediately. This frog's jaws clamp down, and our boy gets a horrifying up-close view of his own demise. And just like that, he's been swallowed whole by the smug-looking amphibian, which just floats there in the pond, looking incredibly pleased with its slimy little snack, letting out a triumphant croak as our boy struggles uselessly inside its mouth. Now he's in the stomach, and the system confirms he's taking continuous acid damage, realizing he's being digested alive and is too weak to split his body for an escape. While on the outside, the frog is just vibing, completely unaware of its impending gastric distress. With his body melting away, he decides there's only one incredibly stupid option left, so he puts all his chips on the table for one last desperate gamble. He starts frantically absorbing the water inside the frog's stomach, turning the tables, and suddenly, the monster doesn't look so tough, clutching its gut in agony. His plan is as simple as it is petty: stuff the frog to death from the inside out. This amphibian swells up like a water balloon, completely confused by its rebellious dinner. So to fuel the process, our boy chugs all his stored hornet honey for a massive HP recovery. He just keeps expanding, pushing the frog's body way past its biological limits, until it detonates in a massive, gory explosion of guts and goo. Our boy shoots out of the blast, finally free and covered in the remains of his enemy. He lands as a giant mound, getting a system notification for defeating trash and gaining a new antibody skill. Now he just sits there in the middle of the lake, a colossal blob surrounded by frog bits, and he finally gets a look at himself, realizing he's become absolutely enormous. This system confirms he's maxed out osmotic pressure regulation, giving him a massive HP boost for 1 hour only. Turns out, absorbing all that water is exactly how he got so big in the first place. A neat little diagram explains. He figures his new kaiju-sized body is the only reason he can handle the pressure, a pretty sweet side effect. But the reality check hits hard when he realizes his 10,000 plus HP is on a very short countdown timer. He decides this is the perfect time to cash an achievement he got for emptying his inventory, and immediately starts fantasizing about being a city-destroying monster, because of course he does. This gives him a brilliant game-inspired idea to just roll over everything like a giant sticky ball. So he starts his rampage, plowing through the swamp and absorbing everything for a steady stream of EXP, trees, plants, whatever. It all gets decomposed as he barrels through the forest, racking up points. Meanwhile, the local fish population can only stare in horror at the giant green apocalypse rolling through their home. Some of them aren't fast enough, getting sucked right into his massive, gooey body as he passes. He quickly realizes chasing agile fish is a waste of time, since moving in the water is still a drag. With that in mind, he decides to take his destructive tour onto dry land for some easier targets. This giant blob makes a beeline for the shore, ready to continue his EXP farming spree. He completely drains the small pond as he emerges, leaving nothing but a muddy crater behind him. On the bank, he spots a couple of small, otter-like creatures having a fish dinner, completely oblivious. Our boy looms over them like a god, offering a friendly hello that terrifies them to their core. Then he just rolls right over their picnic spot without a second thought, because EXP waits for no one. As he passes, he casually informs them he's taking their fish, adding insult to injury. These two poor critters are left sitting there, covered in slime and contemplating their life choices. He decides to spare cute monsters, a noble gesture to prove he's still human on the inside. At that exact moment, he spots a squirrel holding what looks suspiciously like a lit match. Turns out it's a fire squirrel, and its tail erupts into a furious blaze of glory. This tiny rodent then unleashes a comically oversized fireball, completely abandoning the cute aesthetic. This blast hits him hard, and he's shocked to learn that fire is super effective against him. With his mercy rule officially out the window, he decides the little arsonist started this fight. So he rolls right over it, lecturing it about fire safety in the most hypocritical way possible. This squirrel's instantly decomposed, netting him a quick and easy EXP boost for his trouble. Just as he's celebrating, something sharp and fast slices through the nearby trees, and a huge lizard-like monster comes crashing through the undergrowth, clearly looking for a fight. Its target is a poor, unsuspecting treant, which it slams into with incredible force. This lizard monster rears its head back, gathering a nasty-looking substance in its throat. It then unleashes a powerful stream of liquid right at the treachy creature's chest. This attack is an acid spit, and it lands a direct hit on the stationary target. This poor treant starts melting on the spot, its wooden body dissolving away. But in a last-ditch effort, its glowing core ejects from the dying body and flies to safety. This core lands on a nearby stump, looking a little worse for wear but still intact. It immediately begins regenerating a new body, sprouting fresh branches and roots from its new home. Seeing this, the lizard monster gets even angrier, letting out a furious growl. It charges forward with a wild rush, aiming to crush the core before it can fully recover. But the treant's regeneration is less healing and more angry power-up, turning into a full-on battle form. And before the lizard can land a hit, the treant's roots shoot out to ensnare it completely. Sharp wooden spikes erupt from the ground, stopping the monster's charge dead in its tracks, leaving this lizard absolutely skewered, tangled up in a thorny mess of vengeful plant life. Then things get weird as the treant's branches start sprouting these sparkly, glowing flower buds, which bloom to reveal some kind of creepy tentacled center, and that's never a good sign. This lizard can only watch in confusion as the flowers open up all around it, until they start shooting out little red energy pellets, reflecting in the monster's eye. It gets a face full of exploding seeds, which seem to be doing some serious damage, and the barrage is so intense it sends the lizard flying backward, completely caught off guard. This poor monster is just getting juggled in the air by a relentless volley of plant-based artillery. It tries to tank the hits, but the treant's counterattack is way more brutal than it expected. In a panic, the lizard throws up some kind of energy shield to block the incoming seed bombs. It immediately switches to thermal vision, trying to pinpoint the treant's core through all the chaos. With its target locked, the lizard's eyes glow red, ready to end this with one precision strike. It smashes its claws into the ground, aiming to pulverize the core's exact location directly. This attack kicks up a massive whirlwind of dirt and debris, obscuring everything from view, and it follows up with a lightning-fast tail whip, slicing right through the treant's main body. This bladed tail finds its mark, impaling the tree creature right where the core should be, and just like that, the treant dissolves into a pile of goop and magical dust. This lizard monster looks up in absolute terror as its face starts to melt away, letting out a pathetic gurgle while its head erupts in a shower of gore and goo, and it completely dissolves into a sparkly mess, which is a weirdly pretty way to go out. Turns out, our boy was the giant green apocalypse that just steamrolled it from behind. He casually absorbs the entire monster, adding its impressive stats to his EXP bar. This system politely calls the lizard a foreign object, before confirming its decomposition for more points. He's a little confused by the weird phrasing, but is too busy being a giant blob to care. So he just keeps on rolling, thinking his rampage can last for quite a while longer. But after covering what feels like hundreds of acres, he realizes something is very wrong, because the forest is just as dense as when he started, which makes absolutely no sense. He starts to wonder if the entire landscape is somehow shifting around him, and at that moment, a massive black spike erupts on the horizon, followed by a silent explosion. A strange golden talisman then flies right past his face, adding to the general confusion. He's left wondering if he's hallucinating giant silent magic arrays in the sky now. Right on cue, the system announces his time is up, and his kaiju form starts to deflate like a sad balloon. In seconds, he's back to his original pyramid shape, all that temporary power completely gone. His status screen pops up, showing he's now level 49 and has earned the title Weak Creature Lord. He's pretty stoked about hitting level 49 after all that chaos, a decent reward for his troubles. But the system also says he's on a 1-hour EXP cooldown and his inventory is completely full. He opens his storage to find it's overflowing with bones, sticks, and other random junk he's collected. With his inventory full, he decides to just violently eject all the junk he's collected, sending a glorious fountain of bones and trash erupting from his body to clear out space. He's left as a sad little puddle in a field of his own garbage, feeling much lighter. But now he's on an hour-long EXP cooldown, leaving him with absolutely nothing to do. This system chimes in with a new goal. At level 60, he can choose a class change, or evolution. He immediately understands this is the monster power-up path he's been waiting for, and his mind races with possibilities like a class change into a badass slime mold Majin. Of course, he's already picturing himself as a world-dominating magic user, despite being a literal blob. Just then, the sound of something incredibly fast cuts through the air, and a trio of blurs zips right over his head, breaking him out of his power fantasy. A closer look reveals they're giant hornets, complete with nasty-looking stingers and a bad attitude. He recognizes them as the magic-using kind, and 3 of them together is definitely trouble. With nothing better to do, he decides to follow them and see what's going on, zipping through the forest while tailing the hornets from a safe distance. They lead him to a massive, sprawling super colony of interconnected hives, and he's stunned by the sheer scale of it all, wondering if this is some kind of evolved swarm. This entire area is just covered in nests, buzzing with thousands of angry hornets, but something is tearing through them, crushing the hives with giant bird-like talons. Turns out the culprit is a massive, freaky-looking white bird monster on a rampage. It's just casually ripping open nests to gorge itself on the larvae inside, a truly pleasant sight. Our boy recognizes this monster bird, except now it's red and apparently on a mission. It's just chowing down on hornet larvae while the entire swarm goes absolutely ballistic around it. This hornets try to sting it, but their attacks just bounce right off its tough hide, completely ineffective. Even its weird snake tail thing is totally unfazed by the onslaught, a genuine tank. So they switch tactics and just try to bury the thing under the sheer weight of their numbers, which works for about 2 seconds before the bird just casually shakes them all off like dust. That's when the magic users show up, conjuring a whole volley of fireballs in the sky. These aren't just any fireballs either, they're full-on magical meteors ready to rain down destruction. This entire area erupts in a massive fiery explosion as the spells make contact, and our boy, watching from behind a rock, is shocked at how much stronger the hornets have gotten. But the bird monster is just standing in the inferno, seemingly absorbing all the flames. Its white feathers turn a fiery red as it soaks up the heat, getting a serious power-up. It lets out a cry, its eyes glowing with stolen energy, and it is definitely not happy. These hornets are completely stunned, realizing their ultimate attack just served as a free buff. Now fully enraged, the red bird-snake hybrid goes on an absolute tear through the swarm. Its snake tail switches to thermal vision, locking onto every single hornet in the chaos. It starts picking them off one by one, crushing them in its jaws with brutal efficiency. Another hornet gets absolutely demolished, its stinger shattering against the monster's hide. Our boy notes that fire makes the bird stronger and decides to clean up the battlefield for some easy EXP. Meanwhile, the bird monster switches tactics, conjuring a sharp ice spell with its wing. Right on cue, a party of adventurers shows up, identifying the monster as a Lord-level snake heron. Our boy recognizes them as the humans from before, realizing they're also here to hunt the bird. This bird's wing is already encased in a massive chunk of ice, courtesy of the new arrivals, but it just flexes and shatters the spell like it's nothing, completely unimpressed. This warrior tells his mage, Cole, to prep a high-tier spell while he holds the line. Cole smirks, promising his captain he'll drop this thing in a single, decisive move. Before he can even start chanting, the bird monster lunges forward with its razor-sharp talons, and the warrior barely gets his shield up in time, taking the full force of the blow. He's immediately pushed back, struggling to keep his footing against the monster's raw power. This thing is way stronger than he expected, probably from feasting on other powerful monsters. He manages to pull off a shield counter, knocking the beast back for a moment, but the impact leaves him completely stunned and his shield practically in pieces. That's when the snake tail looms over him, ready to finish the job with a venomous bite. Luckily, the girl summons a giant armored boar, ordering it to tackle the monster. Her pet piggy slams right into the bird's chest, landing a surprisingly solid hit. This distraction makes the snake tail miss, its fangs grazing right past the warrior's face. This attack sends the bird stumbling backward, but its snake tail seems to be acting on its own. For a second, the bird just looks dazed, letting out a confused little coo, before it unleashes all that absorbed fire energy in a massive roaring inferno. Turns out, that's a high-tier spell called Pseudo-Dragon Breath, and they are right in the blast zone. Cole slams his staff into the ground, desperately trying to conjure a defense against the incoming inferno, throwing up a high-tier glacial barrier just in time to meet the blast head-on. This dragon breath collides with the massive ice wall, erupting in a spectacular cloud of fire and steam. From a safe distance, our boy is just watching the absolute chaos unfold, completely mesmerized by the show. But even high-tier magic can't hold forever, and the ice barrier starts melting almost instantly. Cole is straining with everything he's got, pouring all his mana into keeping the wall from collapsing. In a matter of seconds, the barrier shatters completely, leaving the party exposed once again. This adventurers get thrown back by the shockwave, barely surviving the monster's fiery counterattack. Our boy is just sitting there, thinking how cool it would be if he could use magic too. Meanwhile, Cole is fuming because he wasted his big spell and is now on a high-tier magic cooldown. This captain tells Naya to use her steelback beast for cover while he prepares to move in. So her pet boar unleashes its spiny back attack, firing a volley of sharp quills at the monster. These quills pepper the bird's hide, but they barely seem to do any real damage, just annoying it. With the monster momentarily distracted, the warrior goes full power release, ready to handle this himself. This bird monster is suddenly launched sky high, completely disoriented by the coordinated assault. It looks down in total confusion, its face now a pincushion of quills, letting out a dumb little goo. That's the opening the captain needed, leaping into the air with his meteor hammer skill ready to go. He brings the glowing weapon down with incredible force, aiming to crush the bird's skull, but the snaketail whips around to intercept the blow, trying to protect the main body, and gets its head completely pulverized for its trouble in a direct and brutal hit. With the snaketail smashed, the captain looks grimly determined to finish the job, and the bird monster is finally down, with Cole busy stroking the captain's ego about it. From his hiding spot, our boy realizes human teamwork is broken and decides he needs to find a strong host. This captain then orders Nia to read the monster's memories for any intel on their missing guildmaster. But the dead snaketail suddenly lunges up and sinks its fangs right into his shoulder. And while the bird's main head is still completely knocked out, the tail is running on pure, venomous instinct. At that exact moment, the main body's eyes snap open as it starts regaining consciousness, so Cole immediately retaliates, skewering the snaketail with a massive ice spike to free his captain. He yells that the snake's venom causes petrification and they need a purification potion now. Nia quickly hands him the potion, but the captain is already in agony from the venom's effects, and he desperately tries to drink it, but the liquid just dribbles uselessly down his chin. Turns out the venom works fast. His throat is already petrified, making it impossible to swallow. In a horrifying moment, his entire body turns to stone, the useless potion dropping from his hand. Nia just stares in absolute horror at the stone statue that used to be her captain. But Cole screams at her to forget grieving because they need to get the hell out of there. She's completely frozen, still trying to process the absolute disaster that just unfolded. So he explains the monster is absorbing the captain's life energy to heal itself, forcing them to retreat. With no other choice, they flee on the boar as the bird monster begins to rise behind them. Now, fully recovered, the bird just watches them leave, letting out a strangely calm coo. While making their escape, Cole downs a mana potion, clearly preparing for another fight. Cole explains they just need to escape and find a royal priest to save the captain, a totally solid plan. Meanwhile, the bird monster is back on its feet, looking anything but cooperative. Naya is, understandably, having a complete meltdown and asking what they're supposed to do now. Cole, ever the professional, tells her to calm down because he's got one more trick up his sleeve. He unleashes an ice gatling spell, firing a rapid-fire barrage of frozen shards, which successfully freezes the monster's legs solid, pinning it to the ground for a moment. This volley continues to pepper its body, slowing the massive beast down significantly. But the bird just looks annoyed, its snake head already glowing with that familiar fiery energy. Realizing what's coming, Cole screams at Nia to just run while he holds it off. He knows if he doesn't stop this thing now, their escape attempt is officially over. With a quick thanks for the mana potion, he gets ready to go all out one last time. He throws up another high-tier glacial barrier just as the monster unleashes its fiery breath. Nia can only watch in horror as the battlefield erupts in a storm of fire and ice, forcing herself to turn and flee on her boar just like Cole ordered her to. Her new mission is clear: get out alive and warn the church about this absolute nightmare forest. Just then, her familiar, an owl named Miwu, finally reconnects with her after being cut off. She's relieved, knowing the owl's aerial view is their best shot at navigating out of here. This owl lands on a nearby branch, seemingly ready to guide her to safety. But its eyes start glowing with a strange, holy energy, activating a skill called Sanctified Fall. Turns out, this isn't a rescue mission, it's a targeting system locked right onto Nia. Nia stares in absolute horror, realizing her own familiar just marked her for death. Meanwhile, in a completely different sealed dimension, the ground is a graveyard of monster parts. And there's their missing guildmaster, Gon, casually sitting on a log amidst the carnage. His system screen is a wall of warnings. His buffs have expired and his stamina is being drained. He just calmly accepts the debuffs, looking like he's been through this 1,000 times. Right on cue, a horrifying mass of flesh and bone erupts from the corpse pile below, and this grotesque monstrosity starts taunting him, saying it can see he's exhausted. This is Kadoya Lawa, the king of the swamp forest, who's been fighting Gon for 2 years. It mocks him for relying on his system, a power it seems to understand all too well. This monster reveals it knows he's a transmigrator, and that this entire forest was a custom-made trap. It offers him a choice: become a corpse puppet, or join its grand plan for dimensional conquest. Gon takes about half a second to consider it before gripping his weapon with purpose. His answer is to unleash a massive attack, promising to obliterate every last piece of it. But the monster just scoffs, claiming it's immortal and undying within this eternal barrier. All the scattered bits of flesh begin to coalesce, pulling themselves back into a single form. It reforms into a terrifying head, gloating that Gon is just a mortal at his limit. So Gon pulls up his inventory, apparently ready to play his final card. From it, he pulls a heavily chained golden flask, a last resort item by the looks of it. He crushes the container of true holy water in his hand without a second thought, and the entire cavern is engulfed in a blinding flash of sacred light, stunning the monster. This holy water detonates in a sunbright flash, absolutely scorching the entire dimension. He admits he was saving that for a bigger threat, but desperate times call for holy hand grenades. Kadoya Lawa is absolutely losing its mind, screaming about how even angels fell to get that stuff. Its whole body just melts away under the sacred fire, which is a pretty satisfying sight. This holy inferno engulfs the entire cavern, seemingly wiping the monster off the map for good, but of course his system immediately throws up a warning. The target is regenerating. A massive pillar of light erupts from the ground, a final purifying blast meant to erase its soul, launching the monster's mangled corpse into the air, looking very, very defeated. Gon thinks this is it, since holy water burns the soul itself, making revival impossible. Except the monster reforms into a new, terrifying eyeball form, laughing that it almost worked. He's stunned, realizing it somehow gained the power of adaptation in the middle of the fight. Turns out it has Gon to thank for that, bringing up that Dragon Emperor's finger he sliced off. Apparently, some random low-level monsters stumbled upon the finger, triggering its revival ability, which allowed Kedoyalawa to use corpse reclamation and pull the piece right back to itself. It figured out Gon had coated his weapon in holy water, which is why it couldn't track the finger. By adapting to the leftover holy water, it built up a resistance, and now Gon's out of tricks. With the tables turned, a giant hand of earth and shadow erupts from the ground below, and it comes crashing down, aiming to flatten our guildmaster into a pancake. Suddenly, dozens of these shadowy hands are clawing their way out of the earth, swarming him. This monster unleashes its own ultimate move, Earth Burial, trapping Gon in a swirling abyss. But Gon's weapon has a neat little trick, absorbing the entire Earth attack to power itself up, and he uses that stolen energy to literally burst his way out of the ground, free once more. He immediately launches a counterattack, aiming his piercing all things skill right at the monster's core. But Kedoyalawa just scoffs, reminding him that even the most powerful equipment has a durability limit. It then unleashes its own ultimate. Necrotic Shriek, a massive wave of pure abyssal energy. Gon's defensive aura is completely swallowed by the blast, forcing him to tank the hit directly. His system is now a Christmas tree of warnings. His weapon is about to shatter and his body is failing. Ignoring the pain, he grits his teeth and prepares to use a high-tier martial art as a last resort. This system screams at him that using the skill in his condition will cause permanent, irreversible damage. He just mutters, "It doesn't matter," channeling every last ounce of his remaining power into his spear. This weapon's armored tip shatters under the strain, focusing all that energy into a single, desperate point. For the first time, the monster's central eye actually shows a flicker of shock at the incoming attack. His piercing all things attack rips through the abyss magic like a drill, heading straight for the core. This impact is absolutely massive, slamming into the monster and cracking the very ground beneath it. And for a second, it seems to have worked as the creature's blood begins to pool on the floor. But the price was steep as Gon collapses with his left arm completely torn apart from the recoil. Kedoyalawa, of course, starts regenerating while mocking him for choosing to suffer instead of just dying. It smugly asks if he seriously still believes he can turn the tables, which is a pretty fair question. Gon finally admits his miscalculation, realizing he should have just gone all out with the holy water. And the real problem comes back into focus: the Dragon Emperor's finger, the source of its absurd adaptation. Kedoyalawa drops a bombshell, revealing Gon's real enemy is the entire Holy Sea. And right on cue, a massive divine punishment drill comes hurtling down from the sky, but Gon just stares it down, apparently having one more ace up his sleeve. He pulls out a glowing scroll, a last-ditch effort that looks anything but holy, and the thing unfurls behind him, a massive contract radiating some seriously dark energy. Turns out it's the Demon King's favor, which is one hell of a way to fight the church. Kedoyalawa absolutely loses its mind, calling him a hypocrite for secretly making a deal with a demon, and it immediately starts screaming for the Pope to save it, which is just peak irony. A massive demonic hand erupts from the void, grabbing the monster's core as it begs for its life, and this Oblivion's grasp crushes the core completely, a fittingly brutal end for the regenerating eyeball. With the monster reduced to dust, the immediate threat seems to be finally over, until a new, very demonic-looking guest steps into the now-empty dimension. It's the Demon King himself, casually greeting Gon like they're old drinking buddies, who then proceeds to roast Gon's current state, saying it's just as pathetic as his own first arrival. As a reward, he offers Gon his power to wipe out their mutual enemies, the Holy Sea. Gon's answer is to shatter the demonic scroll, declaring that their debt is now paid, and the Demon King just scoffs, calling him heartless for turning down such a sweet deal. He leaves Gon with a parting gift, a creepy promise that he's already foreseen his death. With a final swirl of abyssal energy, the Demon King and his influence vanish from the dimension, leaving Gon standing alone on a barren cliff, the eternal barrier finally broken. Gon's system confirms the kill but gives no EXP, and a man alone is now draining his health. He's completely spent, barely able to sit up after that 2-year-long boss fight, and with his last bit of strength he tries to contact another transmigrator for help, but the system flatly denies him, stating that their networks are completely separate. Elsewhere, a different system fails to decompose a target because it's not organic matter. Turns out, a little yellow slime just tried to eat a guy who's been turned to stone. After its meal plan fails, the slime just sits there looking defeated for a moment, before deciding to just loot the guy's shovel instead, because why not? With a quick thanks, it scurries off with its brand new, slightly used weapon, its whole plan being to help some humans and hitch a ride back to civilization. It follows the trail of destruction straight through the forest, heading for a familiar landmark. Arriving at the massive ice wall Cole threw up during his last stand. This slime is hoping the fight's over so it can just scavenge some free loot, but it plays it safe, using a search skill to peek through the ice first. What it finds on the other side is definitely not the victory it was hoping for. This bird monster is standing triumphantly over Cole's completely scorched and lifeless body. It seems our boy's last-ditch effort wasn't enough to take the monster down. and the creature lets out a victory screech, its snake tail wrapped around its fallen opponent. Its eyes begin to glow with a terrifying new power, signaling it's getting even stronger, leaving the slime horrified, realizing the other human is probably already dead too. Elsewhere, Nia's now corrupted familiar Miwu screeches its own name, its eyes glowing with malice, and it immediately dive-bombs its former master who's riding her other companion, Steelback. Nia wastes no time on sentiment, ordering her warthog to counterattack the brainwashed owl. In response, Steelback unleashes its spiny back skill, turning into a living wall of spikes. But Miwu just keeps coming, diving headfirst into the deadly trap without a hint of fear. Its beak suddenly morphs into a glowing, superheated blade, ready to slice through the defense before it unleashes an iron beak gale, spinning into a vortex of pure destruction. This whirlwind attack absolutely shreds the spikes and tears the surrounding forest to pieces, carving a massive trench into the earth and sending everything flying into the air. Entire logs and chunks of the landscape come raining back down on the battlefield, leaving Nia scrambling for cover as a golden blur zips past her head. She has a brief moment of despair, crying out for help and wondering how it all went so wrong. Her boar is pinned under a fallen tree and she tries to transfer mana to save it. Just as Miwu lands nearby, its 3 snake tails now glowing with a sinister new power. These tails then stretch out like whips, striking directly at Nia's head, but instead of a physical blow, they hit her with a mind control attack. For a split second, the corrupted owl looks completely stunned, as if the attack didn't work as expected. Nia suddenly finds herself standing alone in a dark, watery dimension filled with broken pillars. Turns out this was her plan all along, to use their bond to dive into Miwu's spiritual world. And waiting for her inside is the apparent source of the corruption, a serene, angelic being. Inside Miwu's mind, Nia finds a tiny, pure version of her owl alongside a literal angel. She's completely baffled as to why a holy being would be squatting in her familiar's soul. This angel just gives her a serene smile, beckoning her to come a little closer, which is when its face twists into a horrifying demonic visage, still luring her in. Back in reality, Nia is screaming her head off, caught in a terrifying mental assault. Meanwhile, her loyal boar Steelback is still pinned down and struggling to break free. As the corrupted Miwu dives in for the final blow, another threat suddenly appears. This very same bird monster that killed Cole gets blindsided by an unexpected attack. A yellow whip smacks it across the face. Turns out our little slime has joined the party. It immediately unleashes a storm of projectiles, all shaped like its favorite new shovel. This attack absolutely shreds the monster, punching dozens of holes straight through its body. Nia can only watch in shock, recognizing the weapon as belonging to the fallen Captain Hawk. This slime shows off its new trick, spinning the shovels like a deadly helicopter blade. It then morphs its body into a flail, creating a slime mold meteor hammer. With its new cannon-like weapon, the slime prepares to do some serious demolition work. Its first target is the log-pinning Steelback, which it shatters in a single blow. Having freed her companion, the little slime strikes a surprisingly heroic, if wobbly, pose. It wiggles with determination, clearly ready to get back to the fight. Nia and a now freed Steelback gratefully thank the little blob for the timely rescue. She then gently scoops up her new, squishy, and surprisingly effective little ally. Nia holds the slime, telling it she senses something familiar, like she already knows its identity. This little slime just beams back at her, looking incredibly pleased with the attention. And she immediately breaks down, convinced it's Captain Hawk's soul possessing the monster to save her. While Steelback just snorts, clearly not buying it but ready for another round anyway. Unfortunately, their touching reunion is cut short by the looming shadow of the corrupted Miwu. This brainwashed owl is still very much alive, screeching its name from a nearby log. And as Nia prepares to transfer mana to her boar, the slime on the ground has its own plan. It activates its search skill, its body expanding into a massive pulsating grid across the battlefield, and with Pulsation Max, the slime locks onto Miwu's exact location among the fallen trees. A tendril erupts right under the bird, smacking it square in its corrupted glowing eye, and a second one follows up with a devastatingly personal attack right from below. That one was apparently so painful the corrupted owl is actually shedding a tear. Now completely enraged, Miwu dives down to personally obliterate the little yellow blob, but Steelback is having none of that, intercepting the dive bomb with its spiky back. This impact sends the bird monster flying, giving the slime the perfect opening it needed. It immediately reforms into its slime mold meteor hammer, ready to capitalize on the opening. And the little blob starts spinning the hammer like a propeller, building up some serious momentum. It then fires the hammerhead like a plasmatic cannon, scoring a brutal direct hit on the owl. And the attack is so powerful it pins the corrupted bird straight through a massive tree trunk. Stretched out like a bungee cord, the slime admits it might have used a bit too much force. Nia stares down at the wreckage of her familiar, the slime's bungee cord attack having done its job, and she finally puts 2 and 2 together, realizing this is the same monster from the campfire. She figures it's been following her this whole time, which obviously means they're highly compatible, and the slime is absolutely ecstatic to be picked up, its one eye practically vibrating with joy. Wasting no time, Nia kneels inside a magic circle and offers the little guy a formal pet pact. She promises to nurture it well, which is a pretty sweet deal for a monster that just wanted to loot a shovel. Unfortunately, its system throws up a huge warning. Sign the contract and lose all system privileges permanently. So now it has to choose between its overpowered system and a human master. A real tough call. This slime weighs its options and decides a system just can't compete with a classic shonen heroine. Its imagination runs wild, picturing a future of them training together on a sunset-drenched beach. and evolving into a muscular slime man to compete in some kind of monster fighting tournament. Their journey culminates in a championship win, with Nia becoming a full-blown celebrity adventurer, before the slime imagines its final evolution. A handsome pretty boy with a cool third eye. Together, they'd stand united against their final foe, the great Demon King himself. After saving the world, the only logical next step is, of course, marriage. And its own system even narrates the perfect happy ending, having apparently plotted out the next 100 episodes. Snapping back to reality, the slime is completely sold on its own ridiculous power fantasy. With a look of absolute determination, the little blob makes its life-altering choice. Naya, still bleeding from the fight, gently asks if it accepts the contract. Its eye goes wide with a bloodshot intensity, the decision finally made. Steelback just snorts, completely unconvinced by Nia's reincarnation theory. Meanwhile, the corrupted Miwu unleashes a new spell, the Circle of Wind's Demise. This grotesque bird monster stands in the center, gathering some seriously dark energy, its hand then morphing into a horrifying stump of flesh and eyeballs, which promptly grows a full set of teeth because of course it does. Undeterred, Steelback charges straight in, spikes flaring and ready for a fight, while the slime panics, realizing the head it smashed is just growing back. But it's too late, as the boar clashes head-on with the regenerating monstrosity, and the creature's claw unleashes a strange, rainbow-colored energy wave at point-blank range, hitting Steelback with an atavistic ray that starts to de-evolve him on the spot, turning the mighty warthog into a confused-looking prehistoric fish thing. This newly minted fish scurries away, leaving the slime to face the monster alone. Our little blob realizes this isn't the owl's power, but something else entirely. Turns out the entity controlling Miwu is complaining about its host being useless. A new head emerges from the bird's body, revealing Merlin, a holy knight from the church. He looks up at the sky, announcing that the imprisonment barrier has finally been broken, and now he's got his sights set on a new target, promising Gon won't escape. Merlin then unleashes a massive Tempest Wing attack, ignoring Naya's group completely, sending a giant blade of wind slicing through the forest toward some distant foe. Naya and the slime are left kneeling in the aftermath as Steelback is now de-evolved into a pink puffball. This slime realizes that was just another human who hijacked the owl's corpse and then vanished, leaving it feeling totally lost and ignored after its original master was killed by Naya. This existential dread quickly hardens into a tearful, dramatic vow for revenge. Elsewhere, the shockwave from Merlin's earlier attack continues to carve a path of destruction, setting a grim scene for the next unlucky person to wander through these woods. A system window alerts a knight named Gon that he's out of mana and severely injured. He tells his system to forget the warnings and find him the new transmigrator fast. And the system confirms it can't make contact, but it can sense a signal getting stronger nearby. Gon knows he has to grab this person and flee before the Holy See sends a cleanup crew. He takes a step forward, right onto something distinctly squishy and very yellow. Hiding in the bushes, our slime uses its search skill and spots Gon's long neck, immediately forming its trusty meteor hammer to take down this suspicious new arrival. It swings with all its might, landing a solid whack right on the back of the knight's head. This slime is a bit confused though, as the impact felt a lot more like solid armor. Looking down at the body, it realizes the neck was just a fancy helmet tassel. It awkwardly apologizes to the unconscious knight, blaming the guy's poor fashion sense. But the knight's hand suddenly shoots up, grabbing the slime in a crushing grip, his eyes glowing with fury as he recognizes Hawk's weapon and accuses it of murder. Just as he's about to squeeze the life out of it, two system windows pop into existence. Gon freezes, shocked to see an interface, realizing this little monster is a transmigrator too. This slime is absolutely floored, realizing this knight is another transmigrator just like him. Gon explains he used a special skill to summon the slime here specifically to fight the corrupt church. Our little blob is less than convinced, pointing out it's too weak to even save Nia, let alone fight a holy war. This knight tells it to chill, mentioning his own slow grind before casually roasting the slime for being a single-celled organism. Then Gon drops another bomb. He's not even human, which is why he's always hiding in this suit of armor. This slime is just getting more confused by the second, demanding to know what he actually is. Turns out he's a goblin, one of the most hated and loathed races in this entire world. After a quick mental rundown of every ugly goblin stereotype, the slime decides it's perfectly happy being a blob, thanks. But when Gon takes off his helmet, he's revealed to be a ridiculously handsome, white-haired pretty boy goblin, which sends the slime into a jealous rage, screaming about how unfair the character design lottery is. Gon just brushes it off, saying the slime's tiny form is way more practical for sneaking around, much to its annoyance. Getting back to business, he warns that a ruthless holy knight named Merlin is on his tail, so they need to move fast. His grand plan is to synchronize and transfer every single skill he's ever learned directly to the slime. As the system connection begins, the little blob realizes this is the ultimate cheat code to instant power. While the skill transfer slowly ticks up, Gon reveals the church's true motives are far worse than just world domination. Their actual goal is to sacrifice every living being in the world to fuel their own ascension to a higher plane. Our slime is just stunned, wondering what kind of next-level villainy involves wiping out an entire planet. Gon then starts his tragic backstory, revealing he was reborn here as a bottom-of-the-barrel goblin cub. He survived a brutal childhood in a mine until his system activated, giving him the power to slaughter his tormentors. Despite killing his own kind, he insists his soul has always been human, no matter the body he's in. Gon's backstory involves rescuing captive heroines and using his special dual cultivation skill to heal them. Our slime totally relates, insisting its soul has always been human, no matter the body. but it gets hung up on that dual cultivation part, demanding to know what that skill actually does. Gon casually explains that by cultivating with women, he gains different stat boosts depending on their class. Apparently, it's a very hands-on process that gives him HP from warriors and MP from mages. He claims he used this power to build a family before heading to the capital for a better life. And the slime is just disgusted, feeling like Gon is bragging about his power-leveling harem. But the story takes a dark turn, as Gon reveals that trip to the capital cost him everything. At that exact moment, a twisted monster appears from above, interrupting the skill transfer to announce it's found him. Gon is completely blindsided, realizing the Holy Knight Merlin is already here. He immediately shoves the slime to safety, cutting the connection to face his pursuer alone. Merlin, in his new grotesque form, unleashes another Circle of Wind's demise attack, which carves a massive, devastating crater right through the forest floor. This monster taunts Gon, saying it's a shame the Pope wants him dead instead of captured for study. He then asks how Gon managed to kill an immortal being named Kedoi Alawa. Gon's system screams at him to retreat, his symbiotic armor now completely destroyed. Merlin just laughs, wondering if he can steal Gon's system by taking his body. Gon fires back that the immortal was just another one of the church's twisted experiments. Unimpressed, Merlin scoffs at Gon's concept of humanity before launching a volley of energy blasts. This creature contorts its body with inhuman speed, dodging an attack as the battle begins in earnest. Merlin holds up 3 glowing rocks, while the slime watches nervously from behind some wreckage, and he taunts Gon, mocking him for having nothing left but a pathetic low-level monster, which triggers a flashback of Merlin using his gaze to completely paralyze some other poor creature. But back in the present, he suddenly realizes something is off. Turns out Gon used a decoy to escape, and Merlin is not at all amused by the trick. Gon comes flying in from above, unleashing a weak point break right on Merlin's head, but Merlin counters by trapping him in a geometric inferno, a cage of pure abyssal fire. This slime watches in horror, thinking this has to be the end for his new ally. And Merlin smirks, admitting physical attacks are his weakness but vowing to keep Gon at a distance. Too bad for him, Gon reveals his skill works on magic too, shattering the fiery prison with his fists, and he breaks through the spell completely, grabbing a hold of the shocked Holy Knight. With Merlin pinned to the ground, Gon roars that he's finally got him trapped, making a final vow. If he's going down, he's taking Merlin with him. His system activates Last Stand, dropping him to 1 HP but making him invincible for 1 minute. And Gon uses that precious time to activate his ultimate skill, the Final Accord. Merlin absolutely loses it, screaming at Gon to stop because he knows the terrible cost of that spell, and his system confirms it, warning this skill will override his invincibility and erase him from existence. Gon doesn't care, activating the spell as a massive world-ending magic circle erupts around them, which begins to violently rip Merlin's very essence right out of his body. In his final moments, Gon passes his mission to the slime via system message, warning it to never trust the church. This slime is having a full-blown panic attack, begging Gon not to die because it was counting on him for a carry. But Gon's final message is to believe in itself, suggesting his whole purpose was just to summon our blob here. A brilliant flash of light erupts from the sacrificial magic circle, leaving a massive smoking crater where the 2 powerful fighters once stood. When the dust finally settles, only shattered pieces of Gon's armor remain on the ground. Our little blob can only mourn its fallen brother Gon, now completely alone. Up above, Merlin is absolutely furious, realizing his target is gone and the mission is a total loss. It turns out Gon's final attack extinguished 5 of his life candles, which were apparently pretty important. This forced Merlin to possess a weak monster's corpse just to stay in the game, much to his annoyance. Fueled by pure rage, the slime suddenly launches itself forward, smacking Merlin right across the face. It vows to carry on Gon's will and get revenge, taking a bit of damage from the impact. Turns out our blob had a backup plan, leaving a clone behind as a consciousness transfer escape route. Merlin is completely baffled by this weird little contract monster Gon apparently left behind. He roars that the slime will now face the wrath that was meant for the goblin, and unleashes that same atavistic ray that turned Steelback into a fish thing. This ray hits the slime dead on, but it just sits there, completely unaffected and confused. Merlin can't believe it, guessing his weakened soul is making his magic less effective. Refusing to accept defeat against a low-level monster, he prepares another attack in a rage. But the slime's search skill confirms Merlin is half dead and has no idea what it's capable of. As Merlin's body mutates further, he's suddenly blindsided by an attack from his own corrupted form. Merlin's own corrupted body tears itself apart in a violent self-destructive frenzy, and he's furious about his weakened state, vowing to burn the forest down once he recovers. But just then, a strange bird-like monster with a glowing chest appears out of nowhere, and it unleashes a pseudo-dragon breath right on Merlin's monstrous host. This blast of fire completely engulfs the already mangled creature in a massive explosion. While from a safe distance, our slime just watches this bizarre monster-on-monster turf war unfold. After turning Merlin's host into a pile of ash, the bird thing seems confused for a moment, before letting out a triumphant screech, apparently satisfied with its handiwork. Suddenly, a nearby wolf corpse starts to twitch ominously, and a horned snake head bursts out, revealing Merlin's next hijacked body. A brilliant flash of light signals another grotesque transformation is underway, leaving our little blob to wonder if this is some kind of mid-battle evolution. This creature emerges as a 2-headed feathered serpent dragon, Merlin's brand new ride. Its new wings unfurl, glowing with a strange and unsettling power. And without a second glance, Merlin's new form takes to the sky and flies away. This slime is left completely speechless, trying to process the absolute chaos it just witnessed. A system window finally appears, confirming the skill transfer only reached 37% and most skills failed. It did manage to snag some practical skills like cooking and medicine, a small consolation prize. Despite the power-up, our blob feels worse than ever, wishing it was still just a simple mold. With nothing else to do, it activates its search skill, scanning the desolate crater for a path forward. With gone, the slime gathers the shattered pieces of his armor, trying to pull them together. It begins to envelop the suit, deciding to wear it as a tribute to its fallen comrade. This blob molds itself into a humanoid shape, creating a makeshift skeleton to pilot the armor from within. Now standing tall, it vows to carry on Gon's mission and stop the church's insane plan. It strikes a heroic pose, ready to take its first steps as a brand new knight, though its new hands are still just goopy extensions with eyeballs embedded in them. And its feet aren't exactly built for walking either, but hey, it's the thought that counts. It figures it can control the body just fine, even if it's technically just a puddle in a can. But the moment it tries to take a step, its legs start wobbling uncontrollably, and it immediately loses all balance, flailing its arms around like a newborn giraffe on ice. Turns out coordinating a whole body is a lot harder than just being a blob, and it promptly faceplants, ending its heroic debut with a spectacular split. Giving up, it melts back into a puddle, deciding it's probably safer to just hide for now. This slime absorbs the armor into its storage space, getting a system notification about its defensive properties. Back in its original form, it slithers away from the battlefield and into the deep woods. It finds a nice cozy hollow in a massive tree to lay low and process everything that just happened. This system finally finishes loading Gon's data, giving it access to a world map and encyclopedia. It learns the world is huge, with a royal capital at the center of several distinct regions. Apparently, the capital has portals connecting all these places, but they're all controlled by the church. And the church takes a fat 50% tax on everything, which gives our blob a brilliant, terrible idea. It takes stock of its limited resources, realizing it needs to get way stronger for the capital. Then it considers the corpse of the girl Nia, debating whether to decompose her for resources. After a moment of quiet contemplation in its dark new home, it pragmatically decides there's no point in letting her body just rot away. So it begins the decomposition process, absorbing her body into its own mass. And as it covers her completely, a strange vision begins to unfold. Nia's spirit appears, smiling as she bids a final farewell to the little slime. Our blob seems to shed a tear, sharing a surprisingly tender moment before she fades. With the process complete, it hardens its resolve to single-handedly destroy the church. This act levels it up to 50, merging skills to create the powerful parasitic domination. A new day dawns, and with it, a new opportunity for some good old-fashioned field testing. It finds the perfect unsuspecting victim, a lone frog chilling on a lily pad. This frog's danger sense immediately starts screaming, but it's way too late for that. Our slime unleashes a plasmodial barrage, firing a piece of itself like a bullet, which multiplies into a full-on volley that the poor frog has no chance of dodging. After getting the EXP, it offers a hollow apology for using the frog as a test dummy. It then reads up on its new skill, which lets it invade a corpse and control it like a puppet. Putting theory into practice, it spits a chunk of its body right down the dead frog's throat. This skill activates instantly, its eye glowing with intense focus as the takeover begins, and its parasitic tendrils start weaving themselves into the frog's neural network. Its parasitic essence surges through the frog's nerves, hijacking the whole system from the inside out, and a single twitch of a webbed hand signals the reanimation process is a success. This dead frog is suddenly back on its feet, much to the slime's own surprise, and the system confirms the parasite skill worked, though it's already hit its one puppet limit. Now for the fun part, transferring its consciousness to actually pilot the new meat mech, so it focuses its will, activating the domination phase of the skill. In a flash of light, its mind is successfully uploaded right into the frog's corpse, which now sports a third eye on its forehead as it checks out its new stats and abilities. This world looks completely different through the frog's eyes, a massive upgrade in perspective. And best of all, it inherited all the muscle memory, so no clumsy face planting this time. This frog puppet turns to look back at the slime's original, now vulnerable body, which has gone into a risky autopilot mode that it'll have to worry about later. For now, though, it's absolutely thrilled to take its new body for a proper test drive. It immediately spots its first test subject, buzzing around in the distance, and unleashes a tongue fist, snatching an unsuspecting beetle right out of the air. After a quick snack, it's completely hooked on the experience and ready for more action. It starts hopping around the forest, getting a feel for its newfound agility, before locking onto its next victim, a poor, defenseless snail. But as it leaps further away, the connection to its main body starts to stretch thin, until the signal finally breaks, leaving it completely disconnected from its puppet. This frog puppet immediately faceplants, the connection completely severed mid-leap. Back at the source, the slime's main body calculates the signal dropped at roughly 30 meters. It realizes there's a leash on this whole puppet master gig, and a pretty short one at that. But then the frog sits up on its own, much to the slime's absolute shock, and starts hopping around like nothing happened, leaving our blob wondering if it just resurrected the thing. A sudden light bulb moment hits as it finally pieces together how the skill actually works. Turns out there's an active domination mode and a much less impressive automatic mode. This main body is basically a Bluetooth hub, stray too far, and the puppet just runs on instinct. Unfortunately, the frog's instincts involve failing spectacularly to catch a snail. Yeah, this automatic mode is not exactly a tactical masterpiece, is it? Deciding this test is a bust. It recalls the frog puppet back into its storage. This gives it a devious idea. If it can puppet a frog, what about Merlin's giant feathered dragon? It imagines riding a high-level beast, leading a parasitic army right to the church's doorstep. While lost in its grand schemes, something suddenly shoots out of the nearby river and blasts it with a water jet, knocking off a decent chunk of its health. Our blob is absolutely furious, demanding to know who just pulled that sneak attack. It assumes some stinky crab is offering itself up as a free meal, saving it the trouble of hunting. This attacker surfaces, revealing it's actually a rather unimpressive-looking pufferfish. Fed up with being everyone's target, it decides to unleash the full power of a low-ranking monster lord. In response, the pufferfish just puffs up, readying another water gun attack. It fires back with its own plasmodial barrage, not about to let some fish get the last word. But the pufferfish just dives, expertly dodging the volley before it can connect. It vanishes beneath the surface, leaving our blob staring at an empty river. So it's a shoot-and-run tactic. Well, two can play at that game. This slime morphs a part of its body into a massive net, ready for some deep-sea fishing. This net scoops up the attacker and its entire extended family, trapping them completely. Hoisting its catch out of the water, it's greeted by a glorious cascade of EXP notifications, and just like that, it's got a brand new pufferfish puppet with a handy water gun skill. Wasting no time, it spots a crab minding its own business and drops a blob of goo on it. This unsuspecting crab gets a face full of slime, its snack time officially ruined. This goo quickly spreads, covering the crab's entire shell in a parasitic blanket. Our blob seeps into the armor's cracks, aiming to hijack the crab from the inside out. This parasite skill works like a charm, instantly neutralizing the target for a takeover. Next comes domination, sending tendrils of control through the crab's nervous system. And boom, another puppet for the collection. A swamp crab with a clamp skill. With its puppet army growing, it sets its sights on a buzzing beehive up in the trees. These bees are already on high alert, summoning a massive swarm to defend their home. So it deploys the frog puppet, which leaps into action with an empowered tongue attack. Its massive tongue whips through the air, wrapping up dozens of bees in one clean sweep. This frog puppet absolutely demolishes the swarm, raking in even more easy experience points. This frog puppet is now grotesquely bloated, having swallowed way more bees than it can handle. Meanwhile, the remaining bees are not impressed, charging up a massive honey bomb from above. Our slime realizes its frog is about to get nuked by concentrated sugar, a truly sticky situation. Time for a tactical retreat as it quickly shifts its consciousness to another host, jumping right into the crab puppet and raising its claws for a counterattack. This crab starts frothing at the mouth, prepping its own special kind of artillery, and unleashes a powerful water gun straight up at the incoming honeypocalypse. These two attacks collide mid-air, creating a spectacular, sugary explosion that rocks the forest. Unfortunately, the crab takes some serious splash damage, its health dropping dangerously low. These bees are now officially furious, swarming with fiery rage and preparing another assault. They unleash a second, even bigger bombing run, completely engulfing the area in flames. And just like that, the slime's two puppets are flash-fried into a crispy seafood platter. With the ground forces neutralized, the bees buzz victoriously, thinking they've won the battle. But then a surprise water jet blasts one of them right out of the sky, revealing the pufferfish puppet which has been playing submarine in a puddle this whole time. These bees are thrown into chaos, getting picked off one by an unseen enemy. With the swarm completely distracted, the slime performs another consciousness shift for its final play. It couldn't care less about losing a few puppets. They're just disposable tools in its grand strategy. This remaining bees finally regroup, their leader locking onto the slime's main body with a vengeance. They immediately throw up a triple beeswax barrier, bracing for whatever comes next. Our blob smashes through the beeswax, claiming it was just testing its team's combat skills. To prove its point, it morphs its body into a massive plasmatic cannon and slams a tendril directly into the beehive, ready to take over from the inside. Its parasitic essence spreads like a virus, mapping out the entire hive to find the queen. It finds her mid-snack, immediately latching on to begin the hostile takeover. This parasite skill activates with the grand plan of turning the swarm into its personal army. This strategy is simple enough. Control the queen, and through her, control every single bee. And just like that, the hornet queen is puppet number 4, complete with a hive mind skill. It immediately uses the queen to send out a pulse, calling all her children to rise. Except instead of rising, the entire swarm just drops dead on the spot. This new queen puppet is left wondering why nobody is responding to her commands. Turns out, when the queen dies, the whole hive dies with her, a major design flaw in its plan. So it ditches the useless queen and makes a much more practical hornet mage puppet instead. This new puppet comes with some handy skills, including Spark Ember and Levitation. Back at its base, it's gathered a small collection of shiny rocks for some reason. It then addresses its newly formed slime mold squad from a makeshift throne, and with all the gravitas it can muster, our blob commands its new minions to assemble. First up, the frog puppet gets a new name, Waji, who seems to accept with a croak. This crab puppet is officially dubbed Crabsook, earning a promotion for its bigger claws. And finally, the pufferfish is christened Xiaotun, completing the roster of its first squad. This slime's only question is where its new bee puppet disappeared to, so it casually tells the rest of the squad it totally just let the bee go, no big deal. A second later, it dawns on our blob where its new minion actually went. Yep, Waji the frog is about to turn its new mage into a quick afternoon snack. That earns it a disciplinary slap with a new rule: absolutely no eating your teammates. After spitting it out, the slime reassures its slightly traumatized hornet mage that everything's fine. With that minor HR issue resolved, it declares the combat squad officially complete. This whole gang is assembled: a frog, a crab, a fish, and a bee, ready for orders. In its head, it's already assigning roles, starting with Crabsook as the frontline tank. Xiaotun the pufferfish gets the long-range marksman position, looking surprisingly dapper. This hornet, of course, is the team's resident mage, ready to sling some spells. And Waji's natural talents make it the perfect stealthy assassin for the group. Naturally, the slime sees itself as the glorious commander-in-chief and main support. It immediately starts running a battle simulation against Merlin's feathered serpent dragon. In this imaginary fight, the dragon opens with a massive trample attack on the mage. So our blob snaps into commander mode, ordering Crabsook to use its defense skill. This crab puppet leaps into action, positioning itself to intercept the devastating blow. Its carapace glows, forming a solid shield to block the incoming attack head-on. But the dragon's claw smashes right through it, the defense cracking instantly under the pressure. With the tank's shield broken, the slime jumps in with a cytoplasmic injection to keep it in the fight. This pumps Crabsook full of healing energy, patching up the cracks in its shell instantly. And with the tank back in action, it orders the ranged units to unleash everything they've got. So the Hornet Mage and Pufferfish Marksman charge up their ultimate attacks simultaneously, absolutely peppering the dragon with a volley of magic and water that actually does some damage. But the beast's hide is too thick, so it sends in Waji the Frog for the finishing blow, who uses a secret assassination art to strike the dragon's most vulnerable point, a critical hit that sends its health bar plummeting and puts it in a weakened state, which is the perfect opening for the whole squad to go in for the kill. So with a final booming command, our slime orders them to take it down, and the entire team charges forward against the roaring, wounded serpent, culminating in a massive, coordinated strike that shakes the entire battlefield. And with that final push, the feathered serpent dragon is officially defeated. This whole team celebrates their glorious, hard-fought victory together, while the slime laughs maniacally, reveling in its own tactical genius, which, of course, was all just a very elaborate daydream happening inside its cave, as it announces to its actual, very confused puppets that their training is about to begin. Elsewhere in the forest, something small and fast is skipping across a stream, revealing a level 9 bouncy mouse happily carrying a worm it just caught. But its journey is cut short when a log is suddenly thrown in its path by a hidden predator, and a strange cat-like monster lunges out, using its own empowered tongue attack. This rock-covered beast finishes off the mouse, its long tails twitching in satisfaction, revealing itself as a level 21 mimic stone cat, looking absolutely thrilled with its snack. It lets out a triumphant meow, its eyes wide with a particularly unhinged kind of glee, but its victory lap is cut short by a giant swamp mosquito stabbing it right through the back. This bug's abdomen immediately starts to swell, draining the life out of the unfortunate cat, and in seconds, the predator is reduced to a shriveled-up husk, completely sucked dry. With its meal finished, the mosquito casually discards the corpse and takes to the air, then flies over to a nearby stream, scanning the area for its next move. This mosquito lands on the water's surface, ready to lay a fresh batch of eggs, and right on cue, a school of hungry fish gathers below, drawn to the easy meal. But sensing the threat, the mosquito starts crackling with an unexpected surge of electricity, and unleashes a powerful electric discharge, zapping everything in the immediate vicinity. This entire school of fish is instantly fried, floating lifelessly on the surface. Just as it celebrates, a massive catfish erupts from the water and swallows it whole. This level 44 electric catfish looks smug, having just turned the hunter into the hunted, but then the catfish begins to glow with an intense, blinding white light. From a nearby branch, a familiar one-eyed blob watches the whole spectacle unfold, and our slime recognizes this powerful energy surge. It's another monster evolution in progress. This creature transforms into a level 52 thunder catfish, crackling with raw, untamed power, and immediately shows off its new form by unleashing a devastating thunder flash into the water. This water below is still crackling with electricity, leaving our slime to ponder this new development. And it realizes these monster evolutions are happening way more often than they should. Just then, its internal encyclopedia starts loading up some much-needed world background info, revealing it's been chilling in an S-rank danger zone where rapid evolution is the local specialty. This system lays out the power hierarchy, from weaklings to the absolute king-level monsters. And a battle record shows a previous regional king got its entire army annihilated by someone named Gon. Because of that war, the whole ecosystem is now in a recovery phase, flooded with magic energy, which means all the surviving mid-tier beasts are getting a priority pass to evolve and get stronger. Essentially, the food chain has been reset, and it's now a mad dash for anyone to become the new king. With the lore dump complete, our blob finally understands the chaotic nature of its new home. It immediately wonders if its own puppets can evolve and why that catfish is so much stronger than its level. This system clarifies that level is just a number. A level 100 mouse is still just a snack for a dragon. Another huge commotion from the water cuts its thoughts short, so it decides to go take a look. It zips through the forest, speeding towards the source of the disturbance, and what it finds on the other side is a genuine holy crap moment. that freshly evolved thunder catfish is already getting absolutely demolished by an even bigger predator. A massive level 60 swamp crocodile has it clamped in its jaws, ending its reign before it even began. This crocodile's cold, reptilian eye stares down its prey without a hint of mercy, and even as it takes some damage from the catfish's spikes, it just bites down harder. In a stroke of luck, the mangled fish is sent flying right at our slime, who sees a free delivery. This slime stands over the two defeated monsters, a fresh buffet laid out before it. It wisely decides against making puppets, since one is half rotten and the other is basically charcoal. Instead, it just absorbs all the leftover electricity, taking a ton of damage in the process. So it chugs over 100 portions of honey to offset the pain and power up. This triggers a nutritional overload, bloating it to epic proportions with a massive HP boost. With its new size, it activates the Decompose skill to just melt everything down. This system goes wild with EXP notifications and even grants it a new lightning resistance. Both high-level monsters are stripped clean down to the bone in a matter of seconds. All that delicious EXP is enough to push it straight to level 51, feeling fantastic. Realizing the buff is on a timer, it decides to go on an all-you-can-eat rampage. This peaceful forest has absolutely no idea what's about to hit it, and our blob becomes a giant rolling ball of destruction, tearing through the landscape. It's having the time of its life just watching the experience points pour in. Suddenly, a brilliant food-related idea pops into its head, spotting a much more lush mangrove forest on the other side of the river. Its logic is simple. A healthier ecosystem means bigger, tastier monsters. So, with absolutely zero hesitation, it decides to go exploring for a new menu. Without a second thought, it plunges into the water to cross to the other side, only to be greeted by hundreds of glowing red eyes from the murky depths, because it just jumped into a swarm of level 19 piranhas, and now this slime's brilliant plan to cross the river immediately backfires as it's swarmed by piranhas, and its attempt to eat its way out is a total failure. The HP gain is nothing against the damage. Because this isn't just a few fish, it's an entire aquatic army with our blob as the main course. Being a giant, slow-moving target in the water is proving to be a terrible strategy, who knew? And the system chimes in with a perfectly timed lecture on how being big just makes you easier to kill. Our blob tells its internal encyclopedia to save the tutorial for later, since it's busy being eaten alive. In a desperate move, it sacrifices 20,000 HP to launch itself out of the water with a plasmodial barrage, which leaves it splattered on the riverbank, looking significantly smaller and more pathetic. Back in the water, the piranha swarm is still churning, patiently waiting for round 2. It asks the system if it can just eat more honey to get big again, which it can, but the buff's timer won't reset. With the clock ticking, it goes right back to its rolling, all-you-can-eat forest buffet. It's now a giant rolling catastrophe of mud, sticks, and pure, unadulterated gluttony. As it rampages, it notices the terrain is getting weirder, with thorny plants sprouting up everywhere. This gives it a moment of clarity. Its true power isn't fighting, it's just endless consumption. This path forward seems simple: infinite decomposition, infinite absorption, and infinite evolution. It's already fantasizing about becoming a city-sized monster to give the church a taste of its moldy wrath. But its glorious daydream gets shot down by the system with a blunt "that won't work." Completely baffled, it asks why not, prompting the system to load up another inconvenient truth bomb. Turns out there are diminishing returns. The higher its level, the less EXP it gets from low-level mobs. And just like that, our slime realizes its infinite growth plan has a very finite, very annoying math problem. Our blob complains about the system's vague EXP stats, only to be told the buff has just expired. And just like that, its massive form deflates, spitting out a whole skeletal arm in the process, leaving it as a tiny, pathetic puddle on the ground surrounded by the leftovers of its feast. It grumbles about the system's infuriating customer service attitude, which is just peak entitlement, and with a sigh it tells the system to just shut up for a bit, seemingly accepting its fate. But it's still so full that it starts to violently erupt with everything it just ate, unleashing a geyser of bones, mushrooms, and all the other forest junk it couldn't digest. Now sitting on a literal mountain of garbage, it realizes it needs to hunt stronger prey for real gains. Its gaze falls upon the distant, lush mangrove forest across the river, a prime hunting ground. So after its piranha incident, it waits for the tide to go out, creating a nice muddy path. It starts slithering across the mudflats, wondering what new snacks this jungle has to offer, and immediately complains about getting covered in mud, which is a bold take for a slime. This landscape is dotted with dozens of mysterious holes, which of course piques its culinary interest. So it peeks into one, and politely asks if anything inside would like to be eaten. This answer is a face full of mud, shot directly at it from the darkness, leaving our blob stunned and covered in what looks suspiciously like a mud spitball. Absolutely furious at this disrespect, it dives headfirst into the hole to teach the culprit a lesson, and the ground starts to shake as a one-sided beatdown commences somewhere under the surface. Until a moment later, the offending creature is launched unceremoniously into the air, revealing a level 17 mud skipper, which is now flopping helplessly on the shore. This little mud spitter flops around helplessly after its rude introduction, before letting out an ear-splitting shriek of distress, which genuinely surprises our slime, who didn't think it could even talk. Turns out that cry was a signal, and now the entire mudflat is crawling with its angry friends. It realizes this isn't a level 17 mob, it's a level 17 army, but trying to win with numbers is a rookie move, because our blob didn't come alone either. With a classic manga pose, it activates its own summoning jutsu, unleashing its personal army in a dramatic puff of smoke. Out come the puppets. The crab, the fish, and even the mosquito are back in action. Our blob is absolutely giddy, finally getting to live out its manga-inspired power fantasies. This mud skippers aren't impressed, though, and immediately start spitting a volley of mud shots, pelting the giant crab puppet with a barrage of hardened dirt. This mud hardens on impact, completely immobilizing the crab, but our slime isn't worried about that trick. Instead, it's watching the mud skippers do something way weirder, as they all stand up and start glowing. They move in perfect unison, looking like they're about to pull off some kind of team-up attack. Our blob can only watch, completely stunned by this new development. Of course, its first thought is how cool it would be if they all bowed down and called it boss. But it quickly shakes the thought away, since its daydreams never ever end well. Meanwhile, the mud skippers are coiling into a single writhing mass and then launch themselves into the air like a swarm of spiky, mud-covered missiles. Our slime just watches this synchronized attack, sarcastically asking if they're putting on a show for it, as the mud skippers curl up into spinning bladed wheels of death and fly right at its army, which it now recognizes as some kind of horrifying chainsaw fish hybrid, and the entire swarm immediately homes in on the biggest target, the poor crab puppet. This crab gets absolutely shredded by the spinning projectiles, its shell cracking under the assault, and a system notification confirms its durability is plummeting at an alarming rate. So the slime injects a chunk of itself into the crab, basically turning itself into a living repair kit, before immediately switching its consciousness over to the fish puppet to join the fight, which opens its horrifyingly large mouth, ready to take a bite out of the enemy, and with a steel fang cut, it chomps one of the mud skippers clean in half. Meanwhile, its frog puppet is also getting swarmed by these living saw blades, so it hunkers down, digging its feet into the ground for a powerful leap, launching itself into the air to dodge the incoming barrage with a mighty croak. And then it whips out a bizarre tongue fist to punch back at its attackers. Unfortunately, that brilliant plan ends with its tongue getting sliced to ribbons, forcing our slime to switch its consciousness over to the frog puppet to take control, because the system helpfully points out that its puppets have the battle IQ of a wet rock on autopilot. Now in the driver's seat, it finds itself getting completely overwhelmed by the sheer numbers, but it manages to land a solid hit with an empowered tongue strike, knocking one of the mud skippers out of the fight before switching its focus again. Hopping into the bee puppet, it's immediately met by a storm of spinning mud missiles, so it whips out a triple beeswax barrier, creating a sticky, hexagonal wall for defense. That barrier holds for about half a second before the chainsaw fish shred it to pieces. Realizing a solid wall won't cut it, it decides it needs to stop their movement entirely. Its new plan involves its stinger and a whole lot of honey, unleashing honey convergence to summon a massive glob of honey from the ground, which hardens into a giant sticky amber prison for the unlucky fish. That only took care of a few, though, as the rest of the swarm keeps coming. At the same time, the pufferfish puppet is getting ready for its big moment, using inflate to puff up instantly and impale the mud skippers swarming it. Seeing the opening, the bee puppet orders them to press the attack using honey convergence again, and this time it's a full-on honey bombardment, trapping the mud skippers in sticky blobs. This plan works perfectly, leaving the entire mud skipper army immobilized in honey traps. With the enemy nicely marinated, it prepares a little spark magic for the grand finale. And a single spark is all it takes to turn the entire battlefield into a sugary inferno, roasting the entire army alive and absolutely flooding the system with EXP notifications. With the battle won, its attention is suddenly drawn to something else entirely, because the frog puppet is busy flexing its one kill while the bee carried the whole team. This pufferfish, meanwhile, is trying to help out by spitting water on the mud-caked crab puppet. But then our slime picks up an amazing smell, using its chemical senses to pinpoint the source. That delicious smell gives it a brilliant idea, as the system registers honey roast fish as a new recipe. Of course, all its puppets are drooling over the food too, much to its absolute annoyance. Feeling generous, it declares this a victory feast for the whole team, puppets included. Decomposing the cooked fish gives it a huge EXP boost, and it's apparently a gourmet experience. But the celebration is cut short when it senses more enemies approaching fast. A level 49 Mudskipper boss leaps onto the scene, and it does not look happy at all. This system explains this boss commands the swarm, so our slime plans to just repeat its last winning strategy. Unfortunately, its entire army is still too busy stuffing their faces to notice the giant monster. This boss doesn't wait for them to finish, launching itself forward in a blur of motion. After a good yelling, the puppets finally gulp down their meal and get ready to fight. Deciding wireless is too laggy, it extends tendrils for a direct, wired connection to its team. This new setup allows for instant, coordinated commands, turning its puppets into a hive mind. It's absolutely thrilled, living out its ultimate puppet master power fantasy from the manga. This boss roars, dripping with honey after apparently eating one of its own fallen soldiers. Seeing this, the slime judges the boss as a low-intellect brute and orders the attack. A fresh wave of mudskippers immediately leaps forward to defend their leader. This frog puppet goes in first, whipping out an empowered tongue strike right at the boss's face. But the boss just casually deflects the attack with a flick of its tail, completely unimpressed. At the same time, the bee puppet flies into position, charging up a spark ember spell. which hits the boss dead on in a massive fiery explosion, seemingly ending the fight. But the boss just shrugs off the explosion, using some kind of swamp flow art to control the mud, and our slime realizes this thing has intermediate magic, ordering the crab puppet in as a meat shield. This plan immediately goes sideways when the connection to the crab just snaps, because the puppet is ignoring orders and stuffing its face with leftovers from the last fight. This system helpfully explains that puppets on autopilot can just decide to disobey if they want to, and it finally clicks for our slime. The crab isn't just being greedy, it's about to evolve. Right on cue, the puppet starts glowing with a brilliant golden light, transforming into a massive boss-level swamp crab king. Its new encyclopedia entry confirms it's a top-tier scavenger with an iron-hard shell. So our slime immediately consciousness shifts into its new ride, ready for a real boss fight. Now piloting the Crab King, it absolutely towers over the Mudskipper boss, and with a smug look, it tells the little fish to prepare itself. It charges forward with incredible speed, ready to crush the boss with its new power. But the Mudskipper just casually pulls a fin off its back like a dagger, and hurls it forward as a fin boomerang right at the crab's face. This boomerang shatters on impact, leaving our slime to wonder why the boss's attack was so pathetic. Then a cooking skill pops up, revealing a newly molted crab is at its weakest, but also its most delicious. This system helpfully provides a recipe. First, coat the soft-shell crab in magic potato starch. Then deep fry the entire thing in hot oil for exactly 3 minutes. And just like that, you have a gourmet meal, though only the golden ones are safe to eat. Our slime drools over the 5-star recipe for its own puppet before realizing this is a terrible time for a cooking show. Meanwhile, the boss isn't waiting for a food review and keeps chucking those fin boomerangs, which seem to be doing absolutely nothing to the giant Crab King. After a moment of awkward silence, the Mudskipper decides to switch tactics, casually grabbing the fin out of the air and just sticking it right back onto its body like it's made of Velcro. Then it strikes a pose and gives our slime the finger, which is just peak monster etiquette. Our slime is actually impressed, realizing this thing isn't just a brute but an intelligent troll, so it activates its search skill, spreading its body out to map the entire battlefield. This boss watches these slimy tendrils creep towards it, looking slightly concerned for the first time. With the area scanned, our slime launches its fish puppet like a biological torpedo, scoring a direct hit right in the boss's gut with a massive thud. But a system notification reveals the boss has a slippery skin skill, massively reducing all damage. Turns out that was just a distraction, as its tendrils have now formed a massive trap grid around the boss. Our slime smirks, figuring it can just slowly grind the boss down even with the damage reduction. This boss, however, has other plans and starts glowing with power, unleashing its swamp flow art to command the very ground beneath them. This entire mudflat erupts in a wave of dirt, instantly shattering the slime's carefully laid trap. Our slime can only watch in disbelief as its perfect formation is completely broken. And to make things worse, the boss forms a razor-sharp spear from the mud, ready for the kill. This boss's mud spear suddenly detonates into a massive volley of explosive projectiles, which it watches with a weirdly innocent look on its face, holding a few glowing orbs. This bee puppet desperately dodges the mud spikes erupting from the ground below, only getting saved at the last second by the frog puppet's emergency tongue grapple. Our slime realizes the boss is controlling the entire mud pit, giving it a huge home field advantage. It admits it seriously underestimated this thing, since sentient monsters are on a whole other level. This Mudskipper's eyes narrow, locking onto its next target with a surprisingly sharp gaze, before unleashing a new attack, sending spinning mud discs hurtling through the air. But the fish puppet, Shounen, leaps in front of the fin boomerang to intercept it, inflating itself into a spiky disposable meat shield at the very last second. Shounen takes the full force of the hit, its durability plummeting at an insane rate. This boomerang tears right through its body, a pretty brutal but effective sacrifice play. And a system notification quickly confirms the pufferfish puppet has been destroyed. Our slime thanks Shounen for its noble sacrifice, promising it won't be in vain, because that distraction gave it the perfect opening to snatch the boomerang out of the air. It immediately activates Dissolution, absorbing the boss's own weapon right into its body. This Mudskipper boss can only watch in absolute horror as its favorite toy gets eaten. A notification confirms the decomposition was a success, even granting a nice chunk of EXP. With its main weapon gone, the boss just collapses onto the mud, completely demoralized. So our slime just casually walks over and gives the depressed monster a comforting pat on the back. Our slime gives the boss a condescending pat, clearly enjoying the monster's little breakdown. But that pity party lasts all of 2 seconds before the boss starts screaming its head off. Its eyes are glowing with pure rage, promising a whole lot of murder for our slime. And apparently, it can talk now. The system says extreme stress can unlock a monster's vocabulary. This boss immediately puts its new brain to use, summoning a forest of mud spikes with swamp flow art. Our slime just scoffs, pulling out a giant mace and bragging about its past victories, winding up for a huge swing and turning itself into a flaming mace-wielding comet. Then it unleashes the plasmatic cannon, launching the weapon like a ballistic missile, only for the Mudskipper to casually clap its hands together, ready to catch it. A massive mud wall erupts from the ground, stopping the cannon's advance completely, and the mace just slams into the wall, getting stuck like a fork in wet cement. Turns out the boss's defense is way thicker than it looked, absorbing the entire blow. This boss seems pretty relieved its wall held up, sweating bullets just to maintain it. Our slime realizes its best shot was a total dud, and now its weapon is about to be confiscated. But then a notification pops up. Its martial arts talent is letting it create a new move on the fly. It has absolutely no idea what that means, but hey, new skills are new skills. Deciding to just wing it, it pours a whole new kind of energy into the trapped mace, unleashing a water hammer that blasts right through the mud defense with a huge boom. This attack pierces the wall and slams directly into the boss's chest, and that look of pure shock on its face says it definitely didn't see that coming. This improvised water hammer attack absolutely shreds through the boss's defenses, sending the mud skipper flying until it's half buried in the mud, completely out for the count. Meanwhile, in the ridiculously grand royal capital, some very important people are having a meeting. Inside the Holy See, a row of candles of fate stand as a grim reminder of life and death, and Pope Vicross announces that it's been 3 days since the mage Merlin's candles went out for good. He also claims his world magic can't find our slime anymore, declaring the threat officially over. One of the knights suggests just nuking the whole swamp to be safe, but the Pope insists Gon is gone. A hooded knight named Far says they need to replace Merlin immediately to keep their grand ascension plan on schedule. Conveniently, the Pope announces that a suitable replacement has just arrived for her audition. A young woman with pink hair enters the massive hall, formally greeting the council. One of the knights, Deer, recognizes her as Merlin's disciple, a good candidate despite her personality. This girl, Louisa, immediately drops to her knees, crying and begging them for help. Turns out she's an S-rank adventurer who believes her guild is doomed without her master Merlin. Another knight, Vane, uses this as a chance to poach her for his own guild, with a no-trash policy, of course. Louisa politely turns him down, reaffirming her loyalty and offering her own life to save her master. This Pope finds this moving and asks if she's truly willing to sacrifice herself for Merlin's sake. Trembling, she confirms her willingness to do whatever it takes to save him. So he reveals Merlin's soul is gone, before immediately offering her the vacant Holy Knight spot. As she breaks down, the Pope coldly tells her to stop crying and be grateful for the promotion. All she can do is clutch her clothes in despair, her world completely falling apart. Louisa puts on a brave face, vowing to inherit her master's will and serve the Holy See. But a flashback reveals the moment she found Merlin after his tracking magic went haywire. Discovering his body had been reduced to a shriveled, mummified corpse on the floor. His eyes are locked in a state of pure, unadulterated terror from his final moments. Turns out Merlin had a backup plan, using a soul fragment to possess his most compatible disciple, Louisa. This desiccated body reaches out, begging his student to come closer and give him her hand. Except Louisa just smirks, revealing she knew all about the parasitic spell he'd planted in her. Merlin completely loses his composure, screaming at her for daring to disobey his final order. She calmly reassures her master that she'll help him right now, pulling out a dark grimoire. This book is practically humming with forbidden magic, ready for some seriously messed up stuff. And with a violent flash of dark energy, she begins her version of helping, laughing maniacally while covered in blood, promising to take everything he ever owned. Back in the swamp, the mudskipper boss is lying face down in the dirt, seemingly defeated. But its eyes suddenly snap open because it was just playing dead the whole time. This boss leaps to its feet with a furious roar, ready for a rematch, only to realize our slime didn't fall for the trick and has already vanished. Our slime is already making a tactical retreat since the system never confirmed the kill. Suddenly, a razor-sharp spike of mud erupts from the ground, narrowly missing them. This mudskipper is now tunneling through the earth like a land shark, closing in fast. Our slime can only watch in panic as the enraged boss gains on them at an alarming speed. Our slime tells its frog puppet to change course, since outrunning a land shark is a terrible plan. So the frog puppet makes a desperate leap toward the safety of the dense mangrove forest, as a mud spike erupts right where it was, barely missing its little froggy legs. This boss surfaces and immediately spots the puppet, launching another projectile right at it. This chase quickly turns into a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the swamp's roots. Hiding, our slime admits the boss is too smart to fall for the same move twice. This mudskipper taunts it from below, confident that hiding is completely useless, before unleashing its swamp flow art, sending a pulse through the entire area to find them. And our slime realizes with horror that the boss is using the terrain as a personal radar. That radar works perfectly, and the boss immediately pinpoints their location with a triumphant scream. Its poor frog puppet gets completely trapped by mud tendrils, unable to move an inch. But this was all part of the plan, as the slime's main body shoots a tendril skyward, and the bee puppet swoops in, grabbing the lifeline with perfect timing. Using levitation, the bee begins to airlift the slime's core right out of the danger zone. Meanwhile, the frog puppet is left behind as a disposable decoy to buy them some time. A notification confirms that puppets on autopilot will always prioritize the main body's survival, and just like that, the frog puppet is completely consumed by the swamp, its sacrifice made. Our slime watches its puppet go, its single eye filled with cold, calculated resolve. With the decoy successful, the bee puppet flies off at top speed, carrying its master away. This boss can only watch them escape, promising this isn't over. Down on the ground, the boss isn't taking this escape lying down, charging up its swamp flow art, and unleashes a massive volley of mud spikes, hoping to shoot them right out of the sky. Our slime just screams back in defiance, not about to let a little mud flinging stop its getaway. This thing's got a cytoplasmic machine gun, filling the air with an impossible number of projectiles, and the mud skipper watches the chaos, genuinely wondering if that was enough to finish the job. Just to be sure, it whips up a vortex of mud and rocks to send their way, forcing the bee puppet into a frantic high-speed dodge through the deadly barrage. Unfortunately, one of the rocks clips its wing, taking a huge chunk right out of its side. Even with a hole in its body, the puppet has one last trick up its non-existent sleeve, using the slime's own tendril to launch its master like a biological slingshot. Our slime can only scream for its puppet as it's flung through the air at top speed, while the little bee gives a final heroic thumbs up before it's completely overwhelmed. Even the mud skipper seems a little taken aback by the sheer audacity of that sacrifice play. For a split second, our slime gets sentimental, promising to remember its disposable yet loyal puppets. It then braces itself for whatever comes next, twisting into a weird little shuriken shape. This flight path takes it completely out of the swamp and over a barren, cracked desert where it spots a lone patch of grass and begins its descent, aiming for a soft landing. After a messy splat, it figures it must be safe now that it's out of the mud. Except the ground immediately erupts, dealing a nasty chunk of damage out of nowhere. Turns out a little white worm was waiting in ambush, leaping out of the dirt for round 2. Our slime is panicking in its new grassy safe zone, wondering why it's still losing health. And the system explains this is a salt flat, where the osmotic pressure is literally sucking it dry. It looks out at the endless cracked earth, realizing its tiny island of grass is now a prison. With the next safe spot way too far to jump, it's officially stuck between a rock and a salty place. Just then, a familiar volley of mud spikes rains down from the sky. Because the mudskipper boss has arrived, completely fed up with this whole chase scene. It boasts that running is useless, and all that rage has actually made its magic stronger. But it suddenly stops, realizing the salty ground is doing a number on its own body, sending it into a full-on spasm as its body starts to dehydrate and freak out. This boss goes flying back with a scream, learning about osmosis the hard way. Our slime dodges out of the way just in time, letting the boss crash into its former safe spot. It's now absorbing the boss's fluids, gaining a ton of HP, even as it melts on the salt. This mudskipper manages to grab a piece of the slime that got stuck to its chest, gloating that it's finally going to crush this annoying little pest for good. Meanwhile, the main body is dissolving fast, with no way to reach the next patch of grass. In a last-ditch effort, it spits out its entire inventory, hoping for a miracle, and finds one. A heavy armored boot suddenly slams down onto the deadly salt flats, leaving the mudskipper completely baffled by what it's seeing. This armor stands firm, totally immune to the ground's dehydrating effect. Turns out our slime just equipped a pair of knight's greaves, creating the world's weirdest walking creature. With its new armor, our slime takes a wobbly first step onto the salt flat. Though walking is a generous term for this uncoordinated flailing around, it desperately tries to keep its balance, which is a lot harder than it looks without knees, leading to some truly spectacular, if not entirely intentional, gymnastics. But after a moment, it finally starts to get the hang of its new legs, realizing it's a lot like walking on stilts. Once you find the rhythm, you're golden. Feeling confident, it gives the mudskipper a cheeky wave goodbye and starts its escape. But the boss isn't about to let it go, powering up its swamp flow art for another round, only for the magic to fizzle out completely on the dry, cracked earth. Our slime can't help but laugh, pointing out the obvious flaw in a mud-based attack strategy here. This sends the mudskipper into a full-blown rage, its eyes practically popping out of its head. Ignoring the tantrum, our slime just keeps on clomping across the desolate landscape, making its way towards the edge of the salt flats and whatever lies beyond. That's when it spots a strange glowing light in the distance, piquing its curiosity, and sees some kind of glowing artifact sitting on an island in the middle of a lake. Turns out, it's a massive, partially destroyed teleportation gate, humming with power. A portal, of all things, just sitting out here in the middle of nowhere. Unfortunately, that lake is pure, high-concentration salt water, a death sentence for a slime. It decides it's not strong enough to risk a trip to the human world yet and turns away. Meanwhile, in a dark and rainy forest, we see a small, lonely graveyard under a twisted tree. After that whole ordeal, our slime checks its stats, now a respectable level 51 lord. It sulks in its new hideout, complaining that the mudskipper wiped out its entire puppet army. This plan now is to just lay low and grind, since the world is only getting deadlier out here. As if on cue, a massive thunderstorm rolls in, setting a perfectly gloomy mood, and our slime realizes it forgot to close the door to its dirt hole. So it just stretches out a tendril to pull a leaf over the entrance, problem solved. But a sudden chill runs down its non-existent spine, pure terror flashing in its eye. A horrifying red-eyed creature looms in the rain, having found its hiding spot, and it lunges forward with a blood-curdling shriek, ready to tear the slime apart. Our slime can only scream, completely helpless as the monster closes in, until it suddenly jolts awake, bouncing right out of its leafy bed. It's still panicking, grabbing a nearby stick and telling the nightmare monster to stay back. After a tense moment, it realizes the cave is completely silent and empty. Turns out it was all just a dream, admitting that Mudskipper gave it some serious PTSD. This next morning, the sun is shining and the nightmare is a distant memory. Back in business, it's already spawned some new minions to go hunt for food. With a flick of its body, the little clones shoot off into the forest to do their job. Now it's got a new goal in mind: hit level 60 to unlock its next evolution. Its grand planning session is rudely interrupted by something poking it in the head, and looking up, it sees a giant blue lizard frog thing staring down from a tree. Our slime scoffs, wondering if this thing knows who's the hunter and who's the prey here. So it hits the tongue with dissolution, immediately starting to melt the creature's only weapon. This lizard frog shrieks, yanking its half-dissolved tongue back in absolute agony. Panicked, the creature activates its camouflage skill and tries to blend into the tree to escape. But our slime just uses its search ability, completely unimpressed by the cheap invisibility trick. This grid instantly highlights the lizard's position, leaving it totally exposed for a counterattack. And just like that, it's pinned down, with our slime gloating that it's been found. A notification confirms the capture, adding a new Swamp Patroller puppet to its collection. Later, its minions return with a massive pile of food, and the slime is pretty happy with the haul. It realizes just dissolving low-level mobs gives garbage EXP now, so it needs a better system. Turns out it's unlocked a new skill, cooking, which boosts XP from food and can add buffs. So it asks its system to scan the ingredients and pull up some potential recipes. This menu looks amazing. Grilled platters, skewered fish, mushroom soup, but there's a catch. Every single decent recipe requires fire, which it obviously doesn't have. After a bit of frantic searching, it finally finds an option it can actually make. And that option is a plain salad, which is basically just a pile of wet leaves. Our slime is absolutely fuming, wondering what the point of this useless recipe even is. It needs a source of fire, but remembers it already ate all the local fire bees. Oops. But then, a sudden spark of inspiration hits. It remembers something important. It recalls a certain creature that was literally made of pure raging fire. It remembers the flametail squirrel, a walking, nut-eating fire starter just chilling in the woods. So it tracks one down and prepares to give it a very rude awakening with its new armored boots. After a quick bonk, the squirrel is out cold, and our slime is already impressed by its natural firepower. A quick puppetification later, and it's got a new minion with skills like fireball and self-destruct. This slime immediately puts its new fire starter to work, ordering it to heat up a makeshift stone grill. This little guy strains with all its might, blasting the rock with a surprisingly powerful fireball. And just like that, the stone slab is glowing red hot, ready for some serious cooking. It even carves a spatula and ties on a chef's bandana, getting way too into this whole culinary thing. Then it's a full-on cooking frenzy, stir-frying all the ingredients its minions gathered. After a solid 2 hours of intense grilling, it adds the final touch, a sprinkle of salt it snagged from the flats, even if it hurts a little. This result is a meal that's literally glowing with heavenly light, making our slime so proud it's practically tearing up. This spread is incredible. A whole frog platter, mushroom soup, and some crispy grubs, and with no time to waste, it just inhales the entire gourmet feast in one massive gulp. This dissolution skill kicks in and the system goes wild with notifications for XP, mana, and buffs. It gets all sentimental about the food's sacrifice, watching the frog's soul ascend as it hits level 52. Our slime is stuffed and satisfied, confirming that cooking is way more efficient for grinding levels. 2 weeks later, it's completely taken over the surrounding forest, turning it into its personal territory. Its title has even upgraded to Dominion, and it's now a beefy level 54 with maxed out skills. Miles away from its main body, one of the slime's frog puppets is out on patrol, controlled remotely thanks to a new slime signal relay system it's developed, which is basically a network of slime bits left in trees to extend its command range. But suddenly, the frog puppet gets absolutely shredded by something moving too fast to see, and back at base, our slime feels the connection sever, completely stunned by the attack. It immediately switches consciousness to a bird puppet to get an aerial view of the situation. Spotting the culprit, a massive, armored bull-like monster rampaging through its forest. Luckily, one of its little relay stations happens to be sitting on a branch right above the action, so it instantly zaps its consciousness over to the perfectly placed piece of itself. From this new vantage point, it can feel the immense power rolling off the high-level creature. Still, it's not about to let a trespasser go, warning the beast it just walked into a trap. This bull doesn't even flinch, instead unleashing a terrifying skill of its own called Death Pressure, which slams the slime with a wave of pure psychic dread, paralyzing it on the spot. Before it can even react, the bull's horn skewers the tiny relay station, killing it instantly. With the small threat neutralized, the monster just snorts and continues on its destructive path. But as it charges forward, it's suddenly bombarded by a volley of sticky projectiles from all sides, forcing the powerful creature to skid to a halt, finally annoyed by the disturbance. Turns out our slime had already woven its tendrils between the trees, creating a massive web, and now it activates its search skill, locking onto the bull's exact position within the trap. This beast finds itself completely ensnared, looking up just as a puppet drops in for the kill. This stingray puppet dives in, with our slime thinking it can just wear this big dumb brute down, but the bull just plows straight through the assault, its armor deflecting every single hit, leaving it completely unscathed and looking more annoyed than anything else. Our slime is floored, realizing that this thing's hide is way tougher than it looks. So the bull retaliates with another blast of death pressure, targeting the puppet directly, which is instantly vaporized by the sheer psychic force of the attack. With the puppet gone, the monster turns its attention to the slime's main body on the ground, unleashing a skull blast that sends a wave of earth-shattering spikes forward. This attack absolutely demolishes the surrounding area, ripping trees right out of the ground, but when the dust settles, our slime has completely vanished from sight. Turns out it just dove into a tiny hole to dodge the attack at the last second, and from its new hiding spot, it launches a surprise counterattack straight for the bull's weak point, landing a perfect, if incredibly disrespectful, shot right up its backside. This tip of its tendril then blossoms open, securing a very, very firm grip inside. Our slime strains, commenting on the surprisingly tight squeeze as it pushes itself further in. It decides that a dirty, dishonorable rear assault is the most effective tactic here. This bull starts screaming and thrashing, completely helpless against this internal invasion. Our slime's tendril just keeps burrowing deeper, navigating the beast's digestive tract. until its main body pops out right inside the bull's stomach, finding a nasty-looking ulcer. So it just unleashes its dissolution skill, turning the monster's insides into a bubbling, toxic soup. Inside the beast, it starts pummeling the ulcer with hardened tendrils, a truly brutal internal beatdown, causing the bull to stumble forward in absolute agony as its body breaks down from within. It lets out one last blood-soaked roar while the slime's attack rips through its vital organs. And our slime makes a grand, gory exit by bursting right out of the monster's side. Not done yet, it spreads its body throughout the bull's corpse, activating its search skill again, this time mapping out the creature's entire internal anatomy with terrifying precision. This grid quickly locks onto the one thing that'll end this for good, the heart. So it morphs a part of itself into a brand new weapon, taking careful aim at the target, unleashing a devastating plasmatic cannon blast right through the beast's chest. This bull is sent flying, its body finally crashing to the ground in a lifeless heap. A system notification confirms the kill, granting a massive flood of experience for the high-level takedown. Analyzing the situation, it realizes the bull came from a dangerous unexplored lost zone on its map, which makes it wonder what kind of monster could have broken that horn in the first place. But that's a problem for another day, as it gets to work dissolving the bull's tough hide. This process yields some top-tier loot, high-grade meat and valuable armor-plating materials. It notes that while dissolving gave great EXP, cooking this stuff is going to be even better. Sitting by the massive skull, it offers a very sincere thanks for the meal to its fallen foe. Suddenly, a mysterious blue energy sphere appears in the sky, held by crumbling stone hands, which fires a massive pillar of light straight down into the forest below, opening a swirling portal as shadowy silhouettes begin to step through. Meanwhile, a portal opens up and a group of B-rank adventurers steps into the slime's territory, as some mages with flight magic just take off, leaving the ground pounders in the dust. Turns out a whole crowd of people has poured into this newly accessible zone, and one of the adventurers is already complaining about how they're supposed to cross the Death Salt Lake. She says she brought a specialist for the job, a little mage girl who doesn't look like much, who introduces herself as Xiaoji, another B-ranker who seems way too cheerful for this place. Without wasting a second, she casts a flash freeze spell on the entire lake, and just like that, a massive ice bridge forms, stretching all the way across. A couple of other adventurers see the free ride and decide to take their chances, thanking her for the help before sprinting across the ice, thinking they've hit the jackpot. But the main party just scoffs, calling them rookies who have no idea what's waiting for them. These two guys are just happily running along, completely oblivious to the danger lurking below, until the ice shatters and a giant swamp snake bursts out, instantly killing them both. Everyone else just watches in horror as the water turns red with their blood. A new, much beefier adventure explains the portal's magic made the snake evolve, turning it into a massive three-headed hydra, which he seems way too excited to fight. Speaking of snakes, our slime is just casually roasting a two-headed one over a campfire, having a great time chowing down even if the hot food singes it a little. This reminds it of the bull's armor, realizing it needs to gear up for bigger threats. So it tosses the snack aside, deciding playtime is over and it's time to get to work. It gets a notification for a forging space, deciding it's the perfect time for some upgrades. With a smug little grin, it dives into its personal crafting dimension to get to work, finding itself in a golden pocket space surrounded by a library of potential materials. Turns out its dissolution skills lets it forge without any tools, just a main and auxiliary ingredient. So it summons the main event, the armor plates it stripped from that rampaging bull. It slots the materials into the crafting interface, ready to see what happens. But the system gives it one last warning, fail, and everything gets deleted. Our slime just scoffs, figuring the armor was already broken, so there's literally nothing to lose. And with a decisive splat, it smacks the forge button, rolling the dice. This process kicks off, with the system getting ready to combine the two components, and the materials begin to fuse together in a swirling vortex of light, which erupts in a blinding flash as the crafting completes. Its eye snaps wide open, waiting to see if it just made a masterpiece or a pile of junk. Suddenly, a fully armored hand bursts out from its own body on the ground, followed by a leg that stomps down with a satisfying thud, confirming the craft was a success. A system notification pops up for its new armor set, Indomitable Will, and it looks incredible. This new gear even comes with some seriously sharp-looking claws, perfect for future disagreements. Now for the fun part, it starts pouring its main body into the empty suit of armor. Its slime form stretches and flows, filling every single inch of its new shell, completely taking over the armor and creating a brand new, terrifying Dominion form. Its body completely fills the armor, unlocking its brand new Dominion form. Turns out it's piloting this thing with a slime squad, quite one main consciousness and 4 clones on the limbs. And with that, our slime stands tall in its glorious, sparkling new suit of armor. It's a little disappointed though, since the damaged materials made the armor shrink a bit. But who cares about size when you've got 5 minds working in perfect sync to control it, which it immediately tests by launching a cytoplasmic fist straight at a nearby tree, leaving a perfectly carved, smoking imprint of its knuckles in the wood. Yeah, it's pretty satisfied with the power and precision of its new ranged punch, so it retracts the fist, pulling it back with a satisfying whoosh, only for the arm plating to just fall right off, revealing a slight design flaw. A little piece of itself peeks out, realizing its split consciousnesses get cocky and try to take over. This armor also uses 5 of its 7 puppet slots, leaving it with only 2 to spare. It knows it needs to spend time developing new tactics with these limitations, but then immediately decides thinking is for losers and it's time to just go fight something. It summons its 2 remaining puppets, a bird and a lizard, to form a new party. Kneeling down with its new squad, it notes how weak the puppets feel compared to its new main body. Meanwhile, the adventurers have finally managed to take down the massive three-headed Hydra. This party thinks they've won, but the red-haired swordsman insists on a finishing blow, just in case. A smart move, because the supposedly dead monster suddenly starts twitching, but a new, ridiculously buff A-ranker appears, casually holding its head up and confirming it's dead for good. This A-ranker's arm is covered in the Hydra's digestive juices, looking pretty gnarly, but the gunk just sizzles off, leaving his skin completely untouched by the acid. This other adventurers are floored he's alive, with the big guy asking if they really thought he'd get eaten. He then proceeds to lecture them, calling them overconfident rookies who almost died for nothing. This red-haired swordsman looks absolutely mortified by the well-deserved dressing down. Still, the A-ranker tosses him a handful of potions, telling the party to get back in fighting shape. His final piece of advice is that survival is the #1 rule out here. This others admit he's surprisingly gentle for a guy who looks like he could bench press a building. Meanwhile, the little ice mage is fully recharged and casting flash freeze just for kicks. This big guy, Bask, turns his attention to the Hydra's corpse, deciding to handle the cleanup himself, pulling out a glowing cross to activate a soul collection skill, which promptly summons a massive, intricate magic circle over the dead monster. Beams of red energy erupt from the Hydra, getting sucked up into the sky. Bask just grumbles to himself, wondering why he has to go through this whole ritual. Elsewhere, our slime is in its new night form, watching 3 other puppets do interpretive dance for a frog. It gets a notification that its martial arts talent has adapted as a tendril wraps around its mace. With a single swing, it tests out its new skills by completely obliterating one of the puppets. It's pretty impressed, realizing this human-like body can turn a simple swing into a cannon blast. Now it has to decide whether to explore this dangerous new area or head straight for the capital. Knowing it needs to get stronger to stop whatever's coming, it marches off into the forest. One of its puppets perched on its shoulder senses an oppressive aura, realizing intruders have stepped onto its turf. Meanwhile, that B-rank party is trekking through the woods, with the swordsman noting the area is now covered in weird yellow gunk. His companion points out the slime is literally everywhere, wondering if it's some kind of monster secretion. This red-haired swordsman, busy bragging about his gear, almost steps right into a puddle when a multi-headed swamp leech erupts from the water, spitting a nasty-looking energy blast. But the party's rogue is way faster, dicing the monster into a dozen pieces with a single swift strike. Their victory lasts all of 2 seconds before a whole swarm of giant blade-legged centipedes bursts from the ground. Before anyone can react, one of the background adventurers gets a new, very unwelcome neck accessory. This bug's legs dig right into his throat, pinning him down in a bloody, horrifying grip. And just like that, his head pops like a water balloon, leaving the rest of the team to scream in terror. Now they're completely surrounded, realizing the bug's armor is too tough for their normal attacks to handle. Even the cool-headed rogue is losing it, screaming at the swordsman to do something about the creepy crawlies. He just tells everyone to chill, calmly charging his sword with some serious fire magic. Then he leaps into the fray, unleashing a sacred flame magic sword technique to purify the land. He slams the blade into the ground, sending out a massive cleansing shockwave of holy fire. This entire swarm of centipedes gets instantly vaporized in the all-consuming inferno. His party is left standing in a scorched circle, the immediate threat completely annihilated. And watching this whole light show from a nearby branch is our slime, confirming humans are here and keeping a close eye on them. This attack left a pretty significant mark on the forest, burning everything to a crisp in a wide radius. With the area clear, the swordsman holds his blade high, activating a soul collection skill. Just like the A-ranker, he starts absorbing the souls of the dead bugs into his sword. Then gives his team a lecture about how this isn't a game and one mistake can be fatal, which is immediately interrupted by a frog puppet slapping him with an empowered tongue, leaving him completely stunned as an entire squad of the little yellow menaces leaps into view. One of the frogs even strikes a triumphant pose, clearly mocking the so-called elite adventurer. All his talk about staying calm goes out the window as he screams and charges the frog, unleashing a massive fire slash to wipe out the entire amphibious assault team. But this was just a test, as one of the slime's main puppets decides to gauge their strength personally, launching a tong fist that smacks the swordsman square in the jaw with a satisfying thud. Now he's absolutely livid, his face swollen and his eyes glowing red with pure, unadulterated rage. His companion desperately yells at him to cool it, telling him he's falling for an obvious trap. Of course, he doesn't listen, charging deeper into the woods after the puppets, dragging his team with him. And that's when a massive spider monster spots them from above, seeing fresh prey wander into its nest. It fires a couple of large, sticky egg sacs straight down at the unsuspecting party, which explode on impact, covering the entire area in a thick, immobilizing goo. This adventurers are instantly stuck, completely unable to move as they struggle in the muck. Their little mage identifies the monster's silk and prepares to cast a spell to free them, but a long, slimy tongue whips out of nowhere and snatches her staff right out of her hands. She can only watch in disbelief as her precious weapon is yoinked away into the trees. Turns out, it was one of the slime's chameleon puppets, which now has a brand new magic stick. While the party is stuck, the little mage gets completely pinned to the ground by the spider's webbing. But the swordsman is still laser-focused on murdering the frog that made a fool of him. His little revenge fantasy is cut short when a massive mace comes flying out of nowhere, forcing him into a desperate block that probably saved the frog's smug little life. This weapon clatters away, landing right in a puddle of that weird yellow slime, which immediately starts to bubble and rise, completely absorbing the mace into itself. It finally dawns on them that the yellow gunk isn't just goo, it's a monster that uses weapons. As the blob writhes, he warns his team that this thing seems to be immune to magic. This party's rogue decides to test that theory, leaping in for a direct physical strike, only to get completely swallowed by the creature, his attack doing absolutely nothing. This swordsman realizes physical attacks are their only option now that their friend is half digested.